What up, everybody? Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you hit that like button on your way in. If you're watching on Rumble, hit that thumbs up. Say something in the chat. What up, everybody on YouTube? Make sure you hit that like button on your way in. And if you're lurking, say hi in the chat. Let's stimulate that algorithm, shall we? We got 14 in the house so far, and I'm only seeing 9 likes on YouTube, so we got to get those likes up. Is the music still playing?
Yeah, let these little niggas know. Time is money. I'm back. You want beef? Anybody just call my name. In the streets, SP in the Hall of Fame. Been the hardest nigga out 9 years in a row. Tell you bitch, you ain't a pimp, you really a hoe. It's funny how you bluffing them suckers. Only time SP is with the cops is in cuff, motherfucker.
Okay. Did it stop? Is it stopped? Mic check, mic check. Okay, cool. We're good now, right? Are we good? Not used to doing all this extra stuff with the controls. So shout out to everybody that's here. Appreciate you guys being here. Tonight's topic is all enemies, foreign and domestic. This is deeper than just deportations. This is about justice. Because you see what's happening with the mass deportations and all this resistance against ICE is there are certain individuals within our government all over the country, but right now the focus is on Minnesota, that are in line and in league with these criminal organizations set up by these illegal aliens, and they benefit from the crime and the fraud that these illegal aliens are carrying out. And not only just the illegal aliens that hop the border, but the Somalis that have basically set up shop in Minnesota and have been there for several decades, for a couple of decades. And in ICE going out and arresting these people and them triggering this reaction from the left, what's happening now is the individuals who have a vested interest in stopping ICE and retaining these other individuals who are members of these criminal organizations here in the United States, it's exposing them. They're exposing themselves now, and they're showing their true colors. They're showing whose side they're really on, and they're basically confirming all our claims on the Patriot side that these people that are in support of the illegal aliens are all they're all involved with the crime, and they benefit from the proceeds of this crime. So what we see now is the mainstream media, the liberal establishment, they're talking heads on social media, all pushing the same narrative. And in some cases, they're even using the same tactics, believe it or not. But they're all pushing the same narrative, which is to demonize ICE, to try to rally more people against ICE and get more Americans to support these illegal aliens being here. But it's not because they love the illegals and because they want the illegals to have a better life. No. It's because they want to maintain their criminal organizations, because they know when these illegal aliens who are involved in funneling money to these politicians, when they get apprehended and they get put they get taken into custody, they're going to start snitching, and they're going to start telling on the Americans that were aiding and abetting them. And so the Americans that were aiding and abetting them now have a vested interest in protecting them and keeping them out of ICE custody. So with the mass deportations, a lot of intelligence is being gathered from these individuals that are being picked up. And all of that intelligence is leading right to the top where justice needs to be had. Because when you have crooked politicians that are facilitating widespread fraud, they need to be brought to justice. And it's very difficult to bring them to justice when they have political allies in the federal justice system. We've seen all those federal judges and the crooked rulings they've been putting out. But what we see now is these state politicians, mainly in Minnesota. Let's just keep the focus on Minnesota. Between Governor Tim Walz and the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, they are encouraging and calling for law enforcement to violate the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which gives the federal government authority over the local governments, and ordering them to fight against ICE, to resist ICE, to stop ICE. And I don't know if they realize this, but I'm sure they do. What they're doing is illegal. They're calling for an insurrection. They're literally doing exactly what the mainstream media lied and said Donald Trump did on January 6th. Call for violent uprisings in the street against the legitimate authorities who are conducting legal and lawful activity. There's nothing illegal about what ICE is doing. They're doing their job. But when you have politicians acting as if, of course, in conjunction with the media, acting as if somehow the federal government is overstepping their boundaries and it's illegal for them to do their job and it's the local police's job to arrest them, what they're doing is they're creating an insurgency. And then you have these organizations that are paying people to go out and form crowds, harass ICE, impede ICE, and they're acting as the insurgents. And all these little insurgencies all across the country has now amounted to a full-scale insurrection. And this insurrection involves members of the government, mostly Democrats, who are calling for this violence and calling for this resistance to the federal government. And they are the ones leading the insurrection. And Donald Trump was hinting at bringing in the military, U.S. Marines, that is, and declaring and activating the Insurrection Act, which I think he should at this point. Because ICE is having a really hard time in a lot of these cities. And not only is ICE having a hard time, but ICE is having to resort to more heavy-handed tactics because of all the impeding that these protesters are doing. And people are getting hurt. And these people, they're not going to stop. As long as Trump keeps going after these illegal aliens, these insurgents are not going to stop what they're doing. They're going to continue to intensify. And the more people start getting hurt is the more intense they're going to become with their resistance, which means this shit's got to be put down, and it's got to be put down quick. Hence, insurrection and counterinsurgency. The counterinsurgency would be people like you and me who know the truth, who put out the truth, and who expose the liars and the lies that they're telling. The counterinsurgency is also what Donald Trump is doing with ICE, and now he's going to bring in the military, which is much needed. And as the talking heads on YouTube and the activists in the streets try to make this whole thing racial because they want to rally the black people to support the illegals, which I think is the dumbest thing any black American can do, but there are some dumb ones out there. You have the mainstream media also parroting these talking points. And for the people who don't watch mainstream media, but they watch YouTube, they'll get the same propaganda. And then the people who hear it on the mainstream media and then go to YouTube looking for opposing opinions, they'll get the same propaganda. And the counterinsurgency requires the support of the American people. We have to get out here and start calling these people out. And we have to, like what Nick Shirley is doing, for example, with exposing the fraud in Minneapolis with the Somalis. That's counterinsurgency. Because when you have a foreign group of bad actors in your country, usurping finance, usurping resources, and usurping power, and buying off the local government in order to have them facilitate their crime and their fraud, that is an insurgency. Because that's what's keeping these people in power. And the counterinsurgency is guys like Nick Shirley going out there, exposing these people, triggering federal investigations, and having federal indictments brought down on these people, and having these operations and these organizations shut down. But make no mistake about it, the military is already out. But it's the black ops units that are out, the special forces, the special operations units, and they're doing snatch and grabs in the middle of the night. And they're grabbing these organizers and the funders. So the little bit of money that's still circulating in their coffers is what's paying for these protesters. So now they need the media, because their money's drying up. Now they need the media to stoke the flames of this insurrection and try to legitimize it by talking about it in such a way that people start to think that what these liberals are saying actually has some merit, but it does not. It has zero merit. I mean, they already got you to blind yourself to the immigration laws once they started calling these people immigrants. Now they're trying to blind you to the fact that they're literally protecting criminals by pretending as if ICE are the bad guys and the criminals are the poor little immigrants that are just trying to find a better life. That's not the case. A lot of these guys are members of criminal organizations. And not only that, they engage in sexual crimes, they engage in violent crimes, they engage in petty crimes. And they do all of this because they know they're not documented in America, so there's no way to find them. But ICE is finding them, and ICE is getting them all the hell out of here. And these Americans that are being paid to go out and support these illegals, they're literally working against their own best interest, and they're serving the international establishment that so many of them preach against. The same people they say are controlling America and controlling the world and enslaving the people. This is who they're supporting. They're supporting their agenda, but they're so ignorant they don't even know it. So while they bitch and cry and complain about the government, they're literally supporting the most corrupt faction of the government that's willing to allow foreign nationals into their country and siphon off of the tax revenue. But let's get into it. Make sure you guys go follow me over on Rumble. If you haven't followed me on Rumble yet, please make sure you do. I got tons and tons of videos over on Rumble that are not available on YouTube. So get on over to Rumble and support your boy. All right. Also, go subscribe to the Citizen Man backup channel right here on YouTube. If they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV, you'll be able to find me on the Citizen Man channel. That's where I'll put out the message to let you guys know that I've been zapped and this is where you can find me. But you'll always be able to find me on Rumble. That's why it's important for you to follow me over on Rumble. All right. And last but not least, if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tags scrolling across the screen in the banner below, the links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. And you can also find those very same links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. Just look in the description, just X out of the live chat, go to the description box, click the little more, the little tab that says more, and you'll find all of those links. And I got good news, guys. I was able to regain access to my Bonfire t-shirt store. So I have t-shirts available for sale now. So if you want to check them out, go to the description box, click on the Bonfire link. It'll take you straight to the Citizen Man page, the Citizen Man store. And you can find, you know, a few designs that I had left in there, and I'm going to design some more and put them out. And if you like them, buy them. Fuck it. They do all the printing and they do all the shipping. All I do is the designing and the marketing. All right. So if there's a problem with the shipping or it's taking too long or you have any issues, you need a refund or anything like that, you let me know and I'll let them know and we'll work it out. But I'm kind of happy about that. I'm kind of glad I was able to get that back up and running. But yeah, so I hope you guys like the thumbnail, by the way. Try to make it dramatic, you know. But Donald Trump says if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So this is a social media post from January 15th by President Trump, threatening to use the Insurrection Act to send U.S. military to Minneapolis. And I think at this point, it's necessary. I think he should. Now, breaking news, Scott Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary, by the way, Scott Bessent just announced the Internal Revenue Service is launching massive audits of financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota funds. So something's being done. Justice is being had. And none of this would have happened if all these protesters weren't out taken to the streets and having these politicians advocate for them to break the law. They should have stayed quiet and let ICE do their job, and none of this would have been exposed. You know, it goes back to the old saying, they should have left well enough alone. But you see, they couldn't do that because once Trump started going after the Somalis, they had to step in and do something because, by golly, they can't lose that money train. Banks, MSBs, financial middlemen, anyone who helped move dirty money is about to get torched. For once, the IRS is being deployed for Americans first, not against working families. Follow the money, audit everything, prosecute whoever broke the law. Thank you, Secretary Bessent. Do you firmly support Scott on this? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I got to say, man, Trump's new tax policies are amazing. Trump's new tax policies are fucking awesome because I just filed my taxes, and I'll let you guys in on my life a little bit. For the year of 2025, I grossed $107,000, $107,871 and some pennies, right? That was my overall gross because my main source of income is my company. And that doesn't even count the YouTube money because it's too little to even consider a claim on. So from my business alone, 107. Well, let's call it 108. I did my business filings. I filed my Form 1040, Schedule C, and all that bullshit. And with all the tax deductions and the rebates, I ended up with a tax bill of about $9,000, right? So I wasn't happy with that. So I was doing it on TurboTax, and they give you an option before you file to go back and look for any more deductions. So I decided to do that. And I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, damn, you got hammered, bro. That's almost 10%. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, go back and look for any more tax deductions that you can find because there's plenty of them out there that a lot of people miss. So I went back to TurboTax and I clicked on the link where it says find any more deductions or whatever, maximize your deductions or some shit like that. And I went through that process and I was actually able to lower my tax bill from $9,000 to $4,200. Over half. I cut my tax bill over half. So I thought that was awesome. So shout out to Trump for that tax relief because back in 2023, I think it was, when Biden was in office, and I think I grossed about 120, and I got hammered for like 30,000 or some shit like that. I'm still paying that shit off. But shout out to Trump, man. Shout out to Trump for the tax policy because as a business owner, I'm seeing the results of it. And as W-2 employees, I'm sure you're seeing the results of it in a larger take home. And with the child tax credit for W-2 employees, when you file and you get your child tax credit, it used to be about $1,500 a child. Now it's up to $2,000 a child. So I think that's pretty dope too. But Department of Justice is investigating Minnesota governor, Minneapolis mayor over alleged obstruction of law enforcement, sources say. And I do have this entire article that I plan to read to you guys. But before I do that, I wanted to show you guys a couple of videos because I do have the video clips of them actually calling for the insurrection and encouraging people to obstruct ICE officers. But this video clip right here really hit home for me, right? Because this lady is a conservative. This black queer right here is a liberal. And he starts spewing all the typical liberal talking points about ISIS, racists, and Nazis and all this dumb shit. And when it was this woman's turn to speak, she started actually making sense. And what happened is this fag right here started over talking her. And instead of the host stopping him and allowing her to speak, she actually allowed all the other liberals to chime in and talk over her. And it took me back to those times when I'd be on Brother Sanchez's panel and they would do the same shit to me. And it really got me thinking, right? Because I love them brothers. I'm cool with all of them. But I really don't think they love me as much as I love them. And that's fine. I've been there a million times, right? And it really got me thinking, like, this is a common tactic that they use, because there's times when I've been on this panel and I've been in the middle of saying what I'm saying, and somebody would just cut me off and start drunk ranting or talking over me or arguing with me. And then other people would start to chime in, and then my voice would just get drowned out and I'll never get to say what I was planning to say. And in this CNN clip, what you're about to witness is the exact same tactic being used. So not only on that panel do they spew CNN talking points, just a different chocolate coated flavor of it, but they literally use the exact same tactics that they use on CNN and these other networks to shut down conservative voices. And it's a real head scratcher, because I don't want to accuse them of being agents, and I don't want to say that, you know, they're tied to nefarious groups and they're in on the scheme to destroy America from within. But I can't help but wonder, because there are just too many parallels. So take a look at this. And if any of you guys ever listened to Brother Sanchez and heard me on the panels, you guys have probably borne witness to it. But I will say this, to be fair, the times when it's just me and Brother Sanchez and everybody else is chilling, he lets me say what I have to say. But when there's other people on the panel, they do that. My only problem is when they start doing that, he tends to allow it instead of stepping in and saying, hey, let the man finish his point. You know, I wish he would do more of that and not allow this to happen. And it's a real head scratcher. But listen to this bullshit. This is where all this, and they're trying to make the ICE thing racial because they desperately need the black people to join in this insurrection, because they know that when black folks get behind it, they're the most culturally influential group, and the movement is going to grow. And two, they also know that Trump and the federal government is about to really drop the hammer and use some really heavy-handed tactics against these insurrectionists and these insurgents, and they want to put the black people on the front line. So black people, do not listen to these liberals and do not go out there and try to impede ICE, because when they start using the sonic weapons and really messing people up, you're going to get the brunt of it, because they're going to put your ass in the front line. Listen to this shit.
To do outrageous things. They are recruiting them using Nazi, white supremacist propaganda, hinting to that. And then people see that. People who don't recognize it as Nazi or white supremacists, maybe they just join anyway. But the ones who do recognize it see it as a hint, the same kind of hint as you know, stand back and stand by. And then you put those people in the field. This is not people coming to Washington to protest. These are people being placed in my neighborhood doing horrible things to my neighbors.
You notice how he's talking about ICE being placed in his neighborhood to do horrible things to his neighbors? This man does not live in an average neighborhood. This man is a multimillionaire. That's number one. Number two, he says this about ICE, but he refuses to say this about the actual illegals who were placed in black neighborhoods to do horrible things to the people and have been doing horrible things to the people. You see the double standard here? But let's go.
And when people respond to that, they say, now the problem we created, we will solve with more force. This is a horrible political play.
First of all, how dare you sit here and accuse ICE agents of being Nazi, Gestapo, and white supremacists when they are enforcing law?
They're asking.
That is exactly what you said, homosexual man. That is exactly what you said.
You just insinuated that they're apparently recruiting others. You said they're recruiting others, and then it's a dog whistle for others to then apply to that.
Absolutely.
Second of all,
let me tell you what he's referring to.
You didn't see that?
He's referring to posts that have been put out on social media by DHS.
I've seen all the posts.
And on the Department of Labor.
And you see how the host jumped in to cut her off after he cut her off? That's what they do. That's the game they play. Instead of the host saying, hey, let the woman speak, the host is now cutting the woman off to speak for the fag.
And on other accounts that have been traced back to white supremacist chat rooms, iconography.
So that's equivalent of Hitler drank water. So if you drink water,
Did you not see the one?
Well, look.
Did you not see the one with George Washington?
There's plenty of stuff.
Did you see the one with George Washington?
Which specific one?
The one where they were using Nazi, it's hinting at Nazi phrasing over a picture of George Washington. Did you see it? Did you see it? You didn't see it.
Well, what was the Nazi phrasing?
You said you see it, but you didn't see it.
What is the phrase? What is the phrase?
What's the phrase? And the reason,
no one knows the phrase. How can you accuse her of seeing it if you can't say the phrase?
I don't want to, guys. I don't know what you're talking about.
You see that bullshit? You see how they just never let her speak?
1 second. Everybody stop talking.
One eternity later.
Right. I want to make sure we get this phrase in, because the phrase is one homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who we are as American over a picture of George Washington. And that is a hint at what a lot of people are.
What is that a hint at? That's not a hint at anything other than we love our country. But of course, they got to use the black fag and the big four-headed black woman to spin the narrative to make it racist, because it means more coming from the black talking heads, because the black people are going to listen. But one thing to take note of, they never let the conservative white woman speak. They never let her talk.
Or suggestions, a hint at a Nazi German party thing that said one people, one realm, one leader. Do you remember what the largest Nazi rally ever held in America, where it was held?
Have you ever seen a dollar bill that says one nation under God? Have you ever read John Jay, who said...
You see, he asked her a question. She goes to answer it, and he continues talking over her. That's that bitch shit. That's that liberal lefty bitch shit that they do. That's how they suppress the truth, because anybody that's bringing facts and truth that undermines their false narrative, they cannot let you speak. So they'll bring you on the platform to try to give themselves some sense of credibility, so they can say, oh, well, we don't ice you out of the conversation. We invite you to the conversation. But then when you actually try to engage in the conversation, then they ice you out.
Said we were one people with one language.
Madison Square Garden in 1934. Right. And you know what picture was on that stage? George Washington. And you know what the person said when they got on the stage to introduce that Nazi rally? Was that if George Washington was alive today, he and Adolf Hitler would be
and a normal president. Let me just make one more note.
Exactly.
1 second. Everybody stop talking.
But y'all peep that. Though, right? You see how they just did not let the woman talk at all? That's what they do. And this is how they pretend to have conservatives in the conversation, but they just gang up on them and drown them out, so they can get their narrative out and push their narrative. Because what the woman was about to push back on was this claim that these phrases are Nazi phrases and all this dumb shit. But they desperately have to get this narrative out, because they need black people to join their insurgency. Now they got Black Lives Matter reactivating. Did you know that?
My name is Anaya Porter.
And this is the daughter of the guy that got shot in LA by the ICE agent, who he was shooting a gun in the air on New Year's Eve. Off-duty ICE agent rolls up on him to stop firing his gun, orders him to drop the weapon. He fires at the ICE agent. The ICE agent kills him. Now his daughter is on here talking about fuck ICE, Black Lives Matter. I don't even want to hear what this woman got to say.
My name is Brian O'Hara.
Now, this is the Minneapolis. Well, we'll come back to this. Let's where were we? Let's go back to StreamYard. Let's go back to the gallery. Oh, yes, this is where we are. So you see how they've been pushing the narrative. You see the tactic that they use. Watch for that tactic in these pseudo-truther circles that you'll find on YouTube, where they pretend as if they're about the truth, but all they do is push the narrative, the CNN narrative, in a different flavor and use the exact same CNN tactics. Watch for that, and you'll start to see it. But you see a lot of people that follow those spaces, they don't see it because they don't pay attention to CNN and those networks, which rightfully so, I can understand. But if ever you were to explore that side of the conversation, what you will find is the way they move and the shit that they sell you on those major networks is the exact way they move and the exact same shit they sell you in these pseudo-truther networks. because it's a propaganda campaign and it's time to turn on the propaganda. So speaking of fake ass CNN, let's take a look at this article right here. DOJ investigating Minnesota governor, Minneapolis mayor who decry probe as intimidation tactic. So, of course, they don't want an investigation because they know that they're guilty and they know that there's evidence against them, but they cannot have an investigation because they will go down. The Justice Department, let me blow this up a little more. Maybe you guys can see it better. There we go. The Justice Department is investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey over possible obstruction of federal law enforcement. Sources familiar with the matter told CNN. And of course, Tim Walz and Jacob Frey have been publicly speaking and informing and instructing police to block ICE and impede ICE and arrest ICE agents. A person familiar with the matter told CNN that a grand jury has issued subpoenas for both men as part of the investigation, but neither office had received any notice as of Friday evening, according to sources familiar with the matter. It was not immediately clear when Frey and Walz would receive the subpoenas. The Justice Department declined to comment. Right, the Justice Department can't comment on an active investigation. President Donald Trump and his administration have been critical of state and local officials' response to unrest in Minnesota over the presence of immigration and customs enforcement agents, with the president suggesting he might invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy troops to the city to quell any violence. Yeah, I think that's long overdue. Because now you got people throwing themselves in harm's way and literally impeding ICE and getting themselves fucked up, and ICE having to use more heavy-handed tactics to deal with these people. And I think it's time that shit was brought to an end. But I think because Trump could have declared the Insurrection Act a long time ago, but I think Trump is letting this go on a little bit so it can be documented. It can be documented that this is what these people were doing. So when the military swoops in and starts grabbing these motherfuckers, nobody's going to bat an eye because we already know what they're being arrested for because we've seen it and it's all on video. No thanks, CNN. The investigation, though, represents an escalation of the rhetoric threatening possible criminal consequences for the two Democratic leaders. Both Walz and Frey have openly rebuked the surge of federal activity in Minneapolis, with Frey delivering a public message for federal agents to get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Well, it looks like they're going to get you the fuck out of Minneapolis, my friend. Walz did not confirm the investigation to CNN, but in a statement accused the federal government of weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents. Is this not what I told you guys so many years and months and years ago, that once Trump starts going after these Democrat criminals, they're going to start claiming that he's going after his political opponents? Did I not say that they were going to use that tactic? And here we are. Here we are. The only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her, Walz said, referring to the woman whose fatal shooting by an ICE officer last week touched off the recent unrest. Right, because the shooting was justified. It's on video. Frey told CNN in a statement, the investigation is an obvious attempt to intimidate me for standing up for Minneapolis, our local law enforcement, and our residents against the chaos and danger this administration has brought to our streets. So let me get this straight. Tren de Aragua and all these criminal illegal aliens that were brought into Minneapolis, they're not, or how about the Somalis robbing the tax money? They're not bringing chaos and danger to the streets. It's the federal government who's trying to clean up the mess that they made. You see how they gaslight? I will not be intimidated. My focus will remain where it's always been, keeping our city safe. Well, his focus is not keeping the city safe. His focus is keeping the illegals in business and the Somalis in business. That's his focus. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote in a post on Twitter Friday night, a reminder to all those in Minnesota, no one is above the law. The investigation was first reported by CBS and affiliate WCCO. The state of Minnesota and the Twin Cities sued the Trump administration this week, arguing the immigration operation amounts to a federal invasion. So the illegal aliens being brought in, that wasn't a foreign invasion, But the federal government getting rid of the illegal aliens, that's a federal invasion. You see how one-sided these people are? And accusing the Trump administration of violating the 10th Amendment, which establishes states' rights. Well, here's the thing. The states only have rights as long as they comply with the Constitution and they comply with the federal law because of the Supremacy Clause. But if their actions are outside federal law, then the Supremacy Clause takes effect and the feds now have to come in and take charge, which is exactly what's happening. So Trump's not violating anything. They're the ones that are violating federal law. As long as federal agents are in our city acting unconsciously against our neighbors, we will continue to push back with everything we got, Frey said when announcing the lawsuit on Monday. Around 1,000 additional U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents were expected to deploy to Minneapolis this week, alongside an earlier deployment of about 2,000 federal agents to the area, two federal law enforcement sources told CNN. The Trump administration launched Operation Metro Surge in the Twin Cities last month to target undocumented Somalis. You mean illegal Somalis? But the sweep has detained migrants from other countries, right? Because they're there for all the illegals, not just the Somalis. It has also fueled an intense backlash from residents and protesters who have confronted immigration agents in the streets and at an ICE staging facility. Yep. And they're all going to jail. You mark my words. And it's going to be one big sweep, too. The shooting of Good, being Renee Good, inflamed disagreement between federal and state officials over the reality on the ground. Then this week, a federal agent shot and wounded a Venezuelan national, another illegal, who federal officials said began to resist arrest and violently assault one of its officers. Good, they should have killed him. Protesters have clashed with agents who have at times deployed tear gas canisters and pepper balls, and the Department of Homeland Security announced a dozen people were arrested Thursday night for assaulting law enforcement. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has blamed Walz and Frey for the unrest in their state and vowed to take action against them. Minnesota insurrection is a direct result of a failed governor and terrible mayor encouraging violence against law enforcement, Blanche said in a post on Twitter on Wednesday. It's disgusting. Walz and Frey, I'm focused on stopping you from your terrorism by whatever means necessary. This is not a threat, it's a promise. Blanche visited Minneapolis on Friday alongside FBI Director Kash Patel, according to a post on Patel's Twitter account. Patel wrote that his team was working 24/7 here, cracking down on violent rioters and investigating the funding networks supporting the criminal actors, with multiple arrests already. So, not only is the investigation going on, but people are already going to jail. And you notice when the CNN talking heads get to running their mouths, we don't hear that part of the story. They don't give us that part of the story. That's the part of the story they like to leave out. Because they actually want people to believe that opposing the federal government is a battle they can actually win, when it's not. It's a battle that only leads to new battles, like battling to preserve your anus while you're sitting in that federal prison cell with a bunch of rapists, with a bunch of Fleece Johnsons. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't mean to cough in the mic. Excuse me, guys. Breaking news. Ilhan Omar is being investigated over reports she and her husband enriched themselves through the Somali fraud. Ilhan Omar is at the top of the suspect list. There have been countless reports that her husband has profited. Minnesota's $250 million plus Somali welfare fraud case keeps growing, with more arrests in Ilhan Omar's own district. Her husband, Tim Mynette's consulting firm exploded in value right as these schemes peaked. Conservative groups are digging into her financial disclosures for any connections. No charges against her yet, but the pattern looks dirty. Real oversight is overdue. And man, so much has come out about Ilhan Omar and her fraud and the fact that she's still able to operate. Now, here's the thing. The real Ilhan Omar already been gone. That mugshot where her bald head with her wig and her head wrap missing, that was when she was arrested officially by either the federal authorities or by the military. And this body double, this impersonator that's playing Ilhan Omar, she's playing the role of Ilhan Omar walking free so America can see her get brought to justice. But it's a little infuriating when you play it on the surface level to see her still walking around free as a bird. And it's lighting the fire under a lot of conservatives and liberals too that are not, crazy leftards, that understand that this is a country of laws and we have to obey the rule of law, because although we might not agree politically, we do agree that criminals should be in jail. And people are upset about this. And I want to see her go to prison for a long time. And when she gets out, immediately deported, like they did to the rapper Shine. Minneapolis protests follow second shooting. So again, in Minneapolis, there was another incident, like mentioned in the CNN article, where that Venezuelan illegal tried to fight with the ICE agents and got his leg shot, got shot in the leg. Protests and clashes intensified in Minneapolis following a second ICE shooting in 1 week. On Wednesday night, an agent shot a man in the leg after an alleged struggle during a traffic stop. Mayor Jacob Frey criticized the federal presence as the city pursues a lawsuit, while Renee Good's family hired the law firm that represented George Floyd. So they're trying to play the Black Lives Matter card again. But this time, instead of for a black male crackhead, they're doing it for a white female crackhead. Very interesting. Intriguing, in fact. 3 men arrested for attempted murder of feds in Minneapolis, ID'd as illegal immigrants from Venezuela. And a lot of these Venezuelans, they're Tren de Aragua gang members. And now they're going out trying to kill the feds because now they have the cover of the protests. And this is the point of the mass insurrection. You got the politicians calling for the people to take to the streets and crowd the streets and overrun ICE. And then you got the hit teams in between the crowds looking to kill ICE agents. And I'll tell you right now, if given the green light to take up arms and start attacking and killing ICE agents, they will do it. Andrew says, why did permitting reform stall? What is the permitting reform? I'm not familiar with that. Maybe I know it as something different. If you could elaborate on that for me a little bit. So just now, DHS agents detained rioters outside an ICE facility. Playtime is over. The hammer just dropped on insurrectionists. So this is a full-fledged, full-scale insurrection that we're witnessing right now, but it's being played off by the Democrats as if this is normal constitutional activity when it most certainly is not. This is criminal activity. And they are impeding federal agents. What the hell is this? I'm not hungry. Let me see. Let's go to this article right here. Okay, we don't need YouTube anymore. So Nick Shirley is alleging an additional $16 million in fraud tied to Minnesota transportation companies. So first, Nick Shirley exposed the fraud with the daycares. Then they started exposing the fraud with the welfare. And now they're exposing the fraud with the transportation companies. Awesome work, Nick Shirley. And Nick Shirley is one of those people that the mainstream media is trying to paint out to be a racist. Because that's their only what's the word I'm looking for? That's their only rebuttal. When they can't argue with you because you're right, they'll just call you in a sellout. That's how these people roll. Transportation fraud. Washington, YouTuber Nick Shirley released a new video on Wednesday claiming to have uncovered an additional estimated $16 million. What the hell? Come on. What is all this gay shit? Get out of here. 16 million in fraud stemming from non-emergency medical transportation companies operating in Minneapolis and childhood daycare centers. In the 51-minute video, Shirley and whistleblower David Hoke claimed that dozens of the medical transportation companies don't actually provide services and are fraudulently filling out paperwork to receive government funds. In an effort to prove their allegations, the pair visited several of the non-emergency medical transportation companies based upon addresses listed on alleged government documents obtained by Shirley. Some of the addresses listed on the forms include an apartment complex, which in Minnesota, it is illegal for a transportation business to operate from, a corner store, and an unmarked office operating inside of a commercial office building. Shirley showed that there were 3 transportation companies allegedly listed at one address, all of them which shared the same name with slight modifications at several of the locations. Shirley pointed out how there wasn't parking space to park the vehicles, and at places which did have vehicles present, there was no signs of use. The video showed a line of vehicles covered in snow and no foot tracks in the area. At many of the places Shirley visited, he was met with angry members of the Somalian diaspora, accusing Shirley of bringing harm to the community through his allegations. Yeah, now I actually have a video on my Instagram where they got the Somalis turning up on Nick Shirley, and one of them even says, "You're bringing harm to the community, and if there's a mass shooting in the community, it's because of you," and da-da-da-da-da. Like they're like really out here playing the victim. When they've been caught, you're caught. Give it up. Go run and hide somewhere. Give it up. You're busted. But you see, they're mad because they got busted because the gravy train has stopped. Unlike Shirley's initial video exposing allegations against daycare facilities, which detailed the amount of state funding they received, there was no information on how much money the accused medical transportation companies received. Shirley based his calculations of fraud on estimations made from the number of rides rendered, ride costs, and fleet sizes of the average non-emergency medical transportation company operating in Minnesota. Shirley's allegations raised against non-emergency medical transportation companies are related to an investigation by the Minnesota State Attorney General's office through Pit Stop 66, which resulted in 30 people being charged. Last month, the Justice Department announced that it is investigating close to half of $18 billion in medical and Medicaid services being fraudulently paid out in Minnesota. Among these services investigated includes payments to non-emergency medical transportation companies. However, the companies listed in Shirley's video did not receive any Medicaid funding, according to the Minnesota Star Tribune. And remember, it's the government of Minnesota that's benefiting from this fraud as well. These politicians are being paid off with this fraudulent money. So, of course, any investigation coming out of Minnesota by the Minnesota government is going to try to vindicate these people because they got to keep the money train going. The National News Desk reached out to Minnesota's Attorney General, the Minnesota Democrat Farmer Labor Party, and the Minnesota Republican Party for comment regarding Shirley's most recent video. So Nick Shirley is on their ass. And I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see these people go to jail. But let's take a look at some more craziness. So I haven't watched this clip yet, but this is the Minnesota police chief who's a total cuck, and Jacob Frey standing next to him. So let's see what he has to say, because when it was the other way around and it was Jacob Frey on the mic and the police chief behind him, Jacob Frey was telling the police to go out and arrest ICE agents. So let's see what the police chief says.
O'Hara, Brian, O''Hara. I am the Minneapolis police chief. At 6:51 p.m., Minneapolis police received a 911 call reporting a shooting on the 600 block of 24 Avenue North. Preliminary information indicates that there was a struggle with a federal agent in front of the resident. During the struggle, the federal agent discharged his weapon, striking one adult male. The adult male then retreated inside of the residence, where he remained inside and refused to come out. Eventually, federal agents made entry into the residence, and the individual was brought to an ambulance where he has been transported to the hospital. Minneapolis police have secured the crime scene around the location, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, as well as the FBI, are on the scene processing the evidence. There's a crowd gathered in the area, and we have called for mutual aid from the Minnesota State Patrol and Hennepin County Sheriff. The crowd is engaging in unlawful acts. They have thrown fireworks at police officers, and at multiple times, gas has been deployed. Police are attempting to disperse this unlawful assembly at this time. I urge anyone that is at the scene to leave immediately. This is already a very tense situation, and we do not need this to escalate any further. I have faith that the investigators are involved will follow every lead in this case and ensure it is completed to its logical conclusion.
So that's good. At least the police chief made it known that what these people are doing is illegal, unlike what these politicians have been saying, encouraging that illegal behavior. Jacob Frey did not look too happy. Let's go to the next one. Let's see what else we got. ICE agents tear gas an infant and arrested 2 teens in Minneapolis. So this was a story. Yeah, this story is a little sad. This black family was coming home, and somehow they ended up in the midst of the protest, and tear gas got thrown inside their car by an ICE agent. But I don't believe they're telling the whole story, because ICE is not going to see you in your car and just tear gas your car. But what they will do is they'll stop you and they'll question you to try to identify you to make sure you're not an illegal alien. And if you resist, they'll use force. And this family, there's some, not all the blame goes on the ICE agent, even though throwing tear gas in a car full of people is a little heavy-handed, right? As the father, as the husband, as the man of this household, he should have been wise enough to comply with the ICE agents in order to protect his family. But when you refuse to comply, that green lights the use of force. So the fact that force was used against him means that he did something that he should not have done, which more than likely would have been to resist the ICE agents. So they can complain about the baby getting hurt all they want, but it's their fucking fault. Because part of protecting yourself doesn't only mean fighting back. It also means de-escalating the situation so there isn't a fight at all.
In my car and I got 6 kids in the car. But my 6 months old can't even breathe. My 2-year-old then flipped out the damn car. This was flipped over. My car filled with tear gas. I'm trying to pull my kid out the car. I'm telling the officer I need ambulance. It took him 5 fucking minutes. He's going back and forth with me, telling me to go back in there and call and tell them to come up Lindale. They can't even come up Lindale.
Were you participating in the protest?
I wasn't at all. I didn't care to be, not to say like that, but I wasn't. Like,
you were just here.
Yes. Yes, I was trying to leave. What bands and tears.
I believe him. I believe that he was just trying to leave, because most black Americans are not with it. But the baby did have to go to the hospital, though. That really did happen. But like I said, when you get stopped by law enforcement, if you got your kids in the car, part of protecting yourself and protecting your family is compliance, de-escalation. But these people don't understand that, because they got the politicians in the mainstream media putting the battery in their backs. And when you got a bunch of insurgents out in the street creating chaos like this, heavy-handed tactics by law enforcement is to be expected. It's a volatile, violent situation.
I think the question that you're...
Okay, so this is the mayor, Jacob Frey. This is how they're putting the battery in these people's backs. It says, can Minnesota cops arrest ICE agents? No, they cannot. That's the simple answer. But this man has a whole conversation with Jacob Frey about how many Minnesota cops can arrest ICE agents, which is an absolute lie. And this is another lie that they've been pushing so desperately, that somehow these local police have authority over federal agents. They do not.
That you're getting to, which I'm not wholly answered yet, is like you're basically asking, can our cops arrest them?
Yeah.
From a legal perspective, yes. From a practical perspective, to state the reality,
that is a flat out lie.
Yeah, it does get kind of hard when they drastically outnumber us and they have bigger guns than we do.
And that's for a reason, Jacob Frey. And the reason for that is because of crooked ass mayors like your ass that's trying to use your police force to impede the federal operations. They have to have more manpower and they have to have bigger guns, because if you can somehow convince those police officers to go to war with the feds, it'll be over in minutes. And it has to be that way, because if the feds, based on the constitutional supremacy clause, if the feds have supreme authority over the states when it comes to law enforcement, then they should have superior weaponry. That's the way it goes. And Jacob Frey is a clown. And every single person in Minneapolis that gets hurt in these ICE raids, I put the blame squarely on him and Tim Walz. Because ICE would have never been in Minneapolis if it wasn't for the sanctuary city crap that they were pushing a couple years ago. And that is a fact, because we're not having these problems in Republican cities and Republican states. We're not. You know why? Because when ICE comes in to get the illegals out, the Americans in those areas, they mind their damn business. They're not going to take to the streets, risk life and limb and their freedom to defend a bunch of motherfuckers who are here to replace them. They're not going to do it because they're not stupid. But then again, they didn't vote Democrat because they're not stupid. So that's why every city where you see Democrats in charge, you see a stupid ass population of people that follow these Democrats and believe every lie that they're told.
It does. And here's the thing. We don't want to create warfare in the street.
You don't want to create warfare in the streets, but you're encouraging the police to fight ICE. You dumb motherfucker.
We want to keep our communities safe. We're trying our very best to do that. So nobody, our police officers, ICE agents, civilians, nobody can act illegally. Nobody can. And so we're trying to find the best way to,
as he's acting illegally,
prevent these ICE agents from acting illegally while not causing a fire.
Yeah, that story about the baby, Quizzle says that story seems funny to me. Yeah, it could be some staged bullshit to try to garner more support from black people, because for some reason these liberals are desperately trying to appeal to black people to come out and defend these illegals. And they're not getting the response from black people that they would like to see. It's only a few dummies that are doing it, because most black people remember when the sanctuary cities opened up to these illegals and the way these illegals treated them. Also, most black Americans are offended at the fact that their local governments were giving all this tax money to the illegals while the black people been screaming for reparations for decades. It's a slap in the face, and they were smart enough to recognize that. But now these liberal sacks of shit are trying to garner support from the black people, and they're doing everything they possibly can to try to get the black people out there, because they know once the Insurrection Act is activated, we're talking U.S. Marines on the street. We're talking sonic weapons like they used in Venezuela. We're talking all these riots. Ain't going to be no tear gas and pepper balls. It's going to be microwave weapons on their asses. And it will disperse them, and they will not want the smoke, and they will not come back. So they want to put the black people. It's Operation Hide Behind the Darkie. If you ever seen the South Park movie, that's exactly what the Democrats are trying to. That's exactly what they're trying to do with this Black Lives Matter bullshit and trying to make this whole ICE thing racial. They're trying to institute Operation Hide Behind the Darkies. And if you don't know what that is, because you don't watch cartoons like South Park, in the movie South Park, America went to war with Canada, and because they were. Yes, aerial denial systems, right? Because the Americans, aerial denial systems like the one from Raytheon. I'm glad you mentioned Raytheon, Jason M. Schmidt, because Trump put out a post recently about Raytheon and how they're not doing enough to fulfill their obligations and the contracts with the U.S. government. But anyway, The U.S. went in South Park. The U.S. went to war with Canada, and because they were, portraying America as being racist, the American military decided to use the black battalions and put them on the front lines, and they called it Operation Hide Behind the Darkies. And that's literally what we're witnessing here with the Democrats, because they know shit's about to get real. That hammer is about to come down, and the feds are about to get real heavy-handed. And they would love nothing more than to see some black folks out there getting fucked up by the feds, because then they could use those sacrifices, those poor souls that sacrificed themselves for the dumb Democrat bullshit, and they could get on the news and say, you see, it was Nazi tactics, because look at the ICE Nazis arresting and violently assaulting this black man, and look what they're doing to the black people, and look at them using sonic weapons against the black people, and this and that. I told you Trump was racist. You see the play? They're trying to put black people in harm's way to make sure that they get harmed so they can play the race card and demonize Trump even further. That's the play.
Firestorm on the street. Am I saying it won't happen? No, I'm not saying it won't happen. What I'm saying is, like, I am in charge of keeping the peace and directing our police officers, and I got to keep everybody safe. And so I can't commit to anything. But I think the question that you're getting.
The guy's a fucking clown. Look at these dumbass Negroes. Look at them. What the fuck are y'all doing out there? What are y'all doing? That guy right there, he's the target. They're trying to defend him. This is the type of shit that they're doing. And everybody involved in that scuffle with ICE should all go to jail. Every single one of them. It's crazy. Just a bunch of dumb shit.
Shame on you!
Yeah, they're going to jail. Yeah, you see, you try to impede police officers, you try to impede federal officers, that's what you're gonna get.
Pussy! Fucking pussy! Fucking pussy! Yeah, fucking pussy!
That's kind of funny, I ain't gonna lie.
Pussy! This is your warning. This is your warning.
For what?
Stop fucking following us. You are impeding operations. This is the United States federal government.
I live over here. I got to get to my house.
This is your warning.
Got to get to
all
my
right?
house.
Go home to your kids.
Go to church.
Go home to your kids. This is your last warning.
I serve the Lord.
I will arrest you.
And that ICE agent was clearly Latino.
Go to church. You should be in church.
Just don't make a bad decision, okay, sir?
I'm not making any bad decision. I'm peaceful. I serve the Lord. Not a draft dodging coward.
Have a great day, sir.
You too. God bless. Let these people go to church. Let these people serve the Lord and work.
And this is going on not only in Minneapolis, but all over the country.
Next question. Yes, ma'am.
So I love this clip right here. So Florida Sheriff Grady Judd shuts down liberal reporter with truth about why ICE only has problems in Democrat-run cities and states. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I was saying that these Democrat cities are they're the sanctuary cities. They're the ones that are staging the insurrection. They're the ones that are facilitating the illegal aliens. They're the ones that are protecting the illegal aliens. And they're the ones that are staging the riots and the protests and are trying to actively impede ICE. Thus, that's where you'll have all the problems. So let's listen to Sheriff Judd real quick. That's my dude right here, man. I rock with Sheriff Judd.
Yes, ma'am.
This question is for Sheriff Judd. Since participating in the 287 Jeep program, how many undocumented immigrants have been transferred?
Well, I don't call them undocumented immigrants. I call them illegal immigrants because that's what they are. The reason they're not documented is they're not legal. Okay, they're illegal immigrants. 74% of the illegal immigrants that we
I'm glad that he emphasized the fact that that terminology is fake terminology and they're actually illegal aliens, because we need more conservatives to start saying that and stop playing into the linguistics that the Democrats have been using to try to legitimize these illegal aliens.
We've detained have had criminal charges against them. Okay. The other 26% were riding with them.
Oh, guys, please don't forget to hit that Cash App, hit the PayPal, and support the show. And what's weird is last night's show, I actually got a couple more Cash Apps, and I did not see it. I was not notified of it. So let me go ahead and shout those folks out right now before I forget. Shout out to my brother Anthony. He said, quit smoking. Yeah, I probably do need to. Shout out to Kenya. She says, looking forward to being detracted by money returned. I'm not sure. I think that was a typo, but shout out to Kenya for that support. And of course, my brother Antara Moody with the Cash App says for the info war. And let me bounce over to the Citizen Man Cash App, because I think my brother Anthony hit me on that too. So let me bounce on over there and shout my man out. Yep. Shout out to my brother Anthony. He says, quit smoking. Yeah, I'm trying to, man. I'm trying to, but it ain't easy. It ain't easy. So shout out to those folks for the Cash Apps last night. And shout out to anybody who plans on donating tonight, man. Shout out to y'all. We need that support, man. Put something on, throw something in the pot for your boy. Pass the plate around. We need the tithes and offerings. You know what I mean? It's for the Lord.
Okay. So when we stop a car, we run a warrants check on everybody in the car. When there's a call for service, we run a warrants check on the victim, the suspect, and all the witnesses, okay? We call that 26% collateral. But 3 out of 4 of them have committed another criminal charge.
Next question. Yes, ma'am.
This question is for Sheriff Judd.
Now think about that for a second. They couldn't commit that crime if they weren't here, but they did. So now you're having to take your taxpayer money and my taxpayer money and pay for the prosecution of those folks, pay for the public defender that defends them, pay for the jail and the prison sentence, depending on what the charges are. So, and the majority of the 26% that was left out of the, 74% of them had criminal charges. They were what we call collaterals, and most of them were with the person committing the crime. And that's the numbers that we have so far. And those, so how many illegal immigrants have we arrested this year? We've arrested 557 that have criminal charges, as well as they're here illegally. That's just this year. Now think about that for a second. But here's the thing and let me focus on this. And I know on social media people have already tuned out, but you need to tune back in and listen to this. The reason that you see ICE flooding into Minnesota and Minneapolis and into Los Angeles, into these big cities, is because they refuse to turn over the illegal immigrants who are being arrested by the local police department where there's outstanding ICE warrants. If they would have simply, instead of fighting back and pushing back against the federal government, instead of violating the federal law, which is what these leaders have done there, if they just said, look, ICE, we don't want our police actively engaged in ICE enforcement, but you can come in our jails, and as we make arrests, But here, you can go through your evaluation process and remove those criminals that are committing crime against the citizens of the United States and against each other. You can remove them. Then they wouldn't be flooding these big blue areas with all of these ICE agents. So it's the
bingo. That's it right there. That's it right there. This is why so many ICE agents have to be deployed to those cities, because those cities are not complying with federal law. So now federal law enforcement has to step in and enforce federal law, because these local governments, they have the power to arrest these people when they commit crimes, put them in their jails and turn them over to ICE, but they're not turning them over. So ICE got to go in there and get these people themselves. And now because ICE is in there getting these people themselves, they're also grabbing everybody else that's illegal. Bob Homestead says, didn't Florida, the Epstein go? Bob, you got to rewrite that, brother. I think you made a typo. So it's kind of hard to understand what you're asking.
The policy and the laws that the California and the Illinois and the Minnesota and the Oregons and the Portlands and the city.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Didn't Florida let Epstein go? Yes, and that was back when, remember who was the governor back then, Bob? Who was the governor of Florida back then during the first Epstein case? Do you know? It was the brother of George W. Bush, Jeb Bush. And he was the one that helped George Bush steal the election in 2004. And remember, the federal prosecutors in the state of Florida were appointed by Obama. This was Epstein's case in 2009. So it wasn't Florida that let Epstein go. It was the deep state who was controlling Florida at the time that let Epstein go. Remember, it's not really the position of power per se, but who holds that power and what they do with it. So when you have bad people in the positions of power, they're going to let the bad people go. When you have good people in positions of power, they're going to bring the bad people to justice. Yep, Jeb did get one of those letters. Trey Finesse says, no, the election in 2000. Yeah, he stole it in 2000 from Al Gore. And then in 2004, he stole it from John Kerry, too. It was the same story. Yeah, but it happened both times. So you're not wrong, Trey Finesse.
It's the laws that they've passed that's created the environment for ICE to have to go in there and do it all on their own. And it puts the ICE agents at additional risk. The local law enforcement officers have already taken the risk to arrest these people. They're in custody. They're locked up. They're in a county lockup or a city lockup someplace. You can go through your evaluation process or a state lockup for their causes. But yet they're telling the city, the county, or the state prison system, turn these illegals that have committed crime back out into the community on our people. And so if ICE can't get help from the state and the local folks, then they have to send more resources in order to do the job. All of this could have been avoided.
Yep, sure could.
All of this could have been. You don't see that happening in Florida.
Nope.
You don't see ICE sending 1,000 people down here to go into Miami or Jacksonville or Tampa or Orlando or our big metro areas. You don't see that. You know why? Because we're cooperating. And the same environment could be in every one of those states if the state had cooperated.
Yep.
Or a state. But instead, you've elected a bunch of people there, governors, primarily, House and Senate members, mayors,
yep,
city commissioners, county commissioners, that said, hey, we're going to let these criminals that are here illegally committing crime against the people of the state of California or Minnesota or wherever, we're going to allow them to come back out into the community and commit more crime against you rather than turn them over to our federal partners.
And that's exactly what's been happening.
That's why you're seeing all this scrum all over the nation. That's why you're seeing it.
And the same cities that are having the insurgencies against ICE are the same cities where they had the George Floyd riots, the exact same cities.
If they were cooperating like...
And that speaks volumes about who's running these states and these cities.
Florida was cooperating, there would not be the protest, there would not be the conflict, people wouldn't be angry, they wouldn't be going to businesses. But instead, because they would be caught up like they are in Florida when they're committing crime and we turn them over to ICE, they're already caught and they're out of the country.
Bingo. It's that simple.
Why you're seeing this.
It's that simple. And that's exactly why we're seeing the ICE raids. Because the local law enforcement won't do their job.
It's created by the law and the practice and the policy of the elected officials at the state level, the county level, and the city level, telling them to oppose federal law. Now, why in the world you want those people in those positions?
Because they hate Donald Trump, and anything Donald Trump does is evil. Because I remember specifically Obama was talking that same shit about getting illegals out of the country, and nobody had a problem with it. There weren't any ICE protests.
That think it's all right to oppose the law, that think more of the criminals than they do the suspects. I don't know.
Sheriff, that's because those politicians are criminals themselves.
That's why we call this the free state of Florida, because we're for the people. They're for the criminals.
Exactamundo.
Because
our history.
So here's that clown, Tim Walz. Tim Walz is now invoking the Civil War. When things look bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on July 3rd, 1863. And I think now we may be in that moment. So he's insinuating civil war. And it kind of is a civil war, because when you have the state law enforcement opposing federal law enforcement, that is a civil war, but the state is going to lose. Just like they lost the first fucking Civil War.
When things looked really bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on that July 3rd, 1863. And I think now we may be in that moment that the nation's looking to us to hold the line on democracy, to hold the line on decency.
No, it ain't the nation looking to you, Tim Walz. It's the illegals and the Somalis looking to you to protect them from the federal government, who are simply trying to enforce federal law. Let's get that straight.
To hold the line on accountability, and more than that, to rise up as neighbors and simply say, we can look out for one another. We can have differences, but we've proved to the world going on 250 years that our democracy could hold. It feels to me like we're at one of those inflection points that simply asking about our history.
Tim Walz is an absolute moron.
15-year-old Enfys Zerlot, formerly.
So about 2 seconds after Tim Walz said this,
all across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger.
An ICE agent was forced to shoot an illegal alien from Venezuela after he and two of his buddies started beating the agent with a shovel. True.
Oh, so that's what happened when the illegal got shot in the leg. They were beating the ICE agent with a deadly weapon. Well, there goes some more detail.
Story. ICE was trying to apprehend an illegal alien from Venezuela with a deportation order when the guy hit a parked car and then fled on foot. An agent was forced to pursue him, and then two guys came out of a nearby apartment and started beating the agent with a shovel. He reached for his gun and shot several rounds to defend himself, hitting the illegal alien in the leg. All three subjects then ran back into the apartment and barricaded themselves inside. So this is where we're at now. Tim Walz telling Minnesotans to resist ICE officers, Democrats telling them to rise up, follow ICE around, impede their operations, shove cameras in their faces, fight back. You need to understand something. The politicians telling people to rise up, they don't care. They don't care if a federal agent gets beaten to death on the job. They don't care if a soccer mom gets shot in the street because she was trying to impede their operation. They don't care. The more blood, the better for their narrative.
Yep. That's exactly what the fuck I was saying when that Renee Good shit happened. I was telling y'all they want to encourage more people to put themselves in harm's way, to get themselves hurt, because the more bloodshed that happens is the more they can play the victim. Bingo. Thank you, lady.
This is a political game for them, and they are happy to let you be collateral damage. So now we have federal agents who are also trying to make it home to their families, getting beaten with shovels for trying to arrest criminal aliens with rape and murder convictions because left-wing politicians love chaos and death if they can use it for political gain.
Bingo. Couldn't have said it better myself.
This is why you never give these people any credibility.
You think it's permissible for people to attack me, and that's covered under self-defense, even if I don't strike them?
I think that there's an argument to be made during such terrible times as these that, like, opposition, of course, could be justified. Yeah,
with attacking or killing people that don't agree.
Potentially, yes. Yeah, I think so.
You see, you heard what this guy said? The ICE agent asked him if it is okay to harm a federal agent or law enforcement if they're not doing nothing to you. And this idiot says yes. He thinks so. There's an argument that could be made. But that's the narrative that the Democrats and the mainstream media are putting in these people's heads, because these are not thinking people. These are NPCs that follow orders.
So he agrees with attacking or killing people that you don't like or agree with. Okay.
Was I spreading any ideas?
You're spreading the idea that you should watch that video and think that Jonathan Ross is.
Was I spreading that idea today?
You spread that idea to me.
So if you disagree with him about a YouTube video, now you have to die.
You asked me what my opinion was, and I told you.
Yes.
You asked.
Yes.
You think that it would be acceptable for somebody to hurt or kill?
No, I didn't say that.
You did. You said that you think that
he literally just said that
it's acceptable.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Opposition forces to hurt or kill people who don't agree with them.
Like,
and you are
intentionally
following me around telling opposition forces that I don't agree with them.
Yes.
All of these people that are begging for your empathy will kill you as soon as they can. This is why.
Yeah. They don't give a fuck. Listen to this shit. And this is a young guy. This is a young kid that was raised in the era of Trump bad. And this is how deeply brainwashed they are.
Trump's a bitch.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. We don't like him.
Trump's a bitch. Why is that? I don't know. We don't like him. That's his justification for saying Trump's a bitch. He doesn't know. We don't like him. You see, he doesn't know because he doesn't know anything. He's just had his head filled with all this propaganda.
That's the word around here.
Any particular reason why you don't like him?
No clue at all. I'm just going with everybody else saying.
All right. See, this right here is what divides us from them. Original thought, original ideas.
And that's what I mean when I said these are not thinking people. He said it himself. I'm just going along with what everybody else said. Of course you are, because you're a moron.
Are you a follower or are you a leader? In that side's case, they're all followers. You know, they get in groups and they're like, are you going to get the shot? Well, wait, they didn't do any reason. Oh, so you are. I'm going to get the shot too. Another example. Oh my God. They came here from a foreign country. They should have the same rights as us. You know what I mean? What do you think about it? I think the same thing. Yeah, me too. They have. Okay, no, that's wrong. That's not right at all. The problem is people like you, like I said, have no thoughts. You're followers. You're not leaders. There's two types of people. There's men, there's women. Nobody identifies as a goddamn giraffe. But if someone told this guy, hey, I know someone that identifies as a giraffe, he would be like, really? All right, cool. And then he'd be on the video being like, you know, I know someone that identifies as a giraffe. You all make it so easy to make these kind of videos. That's why people are getting run over in the street, mostly protesters. And I would hope no harm on them. I hope it continues to happen, but just bump them. You know, don't hurt anybody. I do not condone violence whatsoever. or stupidity. So this guy, prime example of that side. But hey, have a great.
Yeah, these people, they're just followers. And I told you, they're not thinking.
We have a second U.S.
Now, remember when I told you there's crooked federal judges that are down with the bullshit? Judge threatens to arrest ICE agents over immigration orders. And look at the judge, dumbass Negro, probably an Obama appointee if I didn't know any better.
U.S. District Judge Jeffrey.
Shame on you, black man, because the illegals are undermining your people and your people's agenda, and you're sitting up in your position of power where you have the authority and the ability to make rulings in favor of your fellow black Americans, but you would rather make rulings in favor of these illegal aliens, these foreign infiltrators.
Jeffrey Cummings now ruling that ICE officers can be arrested at Cook County courthouses in Illinois if they violate his orders and arrest illegals without warrants. So you're going to have local authorities.
ICE don't need no warrant to arrest illegal aliens because illegal aliens are not entitled to constitutional protection. The only due process they get is due for some handcuffs, due for a detention facility, and due for a flight back to their country. That's it. So I don't know who this judge thinks he is, but I hope he gets mopped up in the sweep too. Him and every other judge like him.
Arresting federal immigration officers. We have a second.
This might be the craziest thing we've
And these cops are dumbasses, and I hope they go to jail too.
ever seen. This is two police officers protecting somebody that's about to be detained by ICE. Check this out.
You're in private property. Get out of here. Get out. You're get arrested. You're not here. You don't get arrested for trespassing.
Now, the one thing that we are definitely learning from this is that ICE is not actually above the police.
Yes, the fuck they are. It's just ICE didn't have enough force to take these police officers into custody. But guess what? They're going to have to go home and they're going to have to take their uniforms at some point. And you know what's going to happen when Trump declares the Insurrection Act? All of these individuals, the cops, the protesters, the leaders of the rallies, the funders of the rallies, the people who assault ICE agents and all, black ops are going to kick their fucking doors in. That's what's going to happen. While they're asleep in their bed in their underwear at night, black ops is going to kick their doors in and drag them off to a black site where they belong. Because not only are they violating federal law, but the level of the violation of federal law in impeding federal officers who are trying to rid the country of foreign invaders puts them at risk of being labeled and dubbed foreign enemy combatants or collaborators. And they will be treated as such. And bad things are going to happen to them. So they feel like they're winning now. They feel like they got the upper hand now. But all that shit is going to change very quickly. Minneapolis police chief looks stunned after Mayor Jacob Frey says residents are asking officers to fight ICE agents on the street. And what they're asking for is what we just saw those two police officers do in that video. Those cops are out of a job. Their freedom, their days are numbered. Their free days are numbered. They're going to be in federal prison within the next 90 days. Guarantee it. But we won't hear nothing about it because the fake news doesn't want you to know that these people are actually being arrested and brought to justice because they want to encourage more people to go out and do that shit. But you see, if they start telling people, hey, this person got arrested and that person got arrested and this person got arrested, if they start saying that and putting that out there, it's going to create a chilling effect. And the rest of these cowards who are too afraid to go to jail or go to federal prison, they're going to stand down because they're going to start to see how worth it is not.
There's still a lot that we don't know at this time, but what I can tell you for certain is that this is not sustainable. This is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in. And at the same time, we are trying to find a way forward.
And if you think about what Sheriff Grady Judd said, about these Democratic states not complying with federal law and opposing federal law, when Jacob Frey gets up here and pretends as if Minneapolis is in some kind of crisis, they're the ones creating the crisis. Because Florida has illegal aliens, just like Minnesota has illegal aliens, but we're not seeing the drama in Florida like we're seeing in Minneapolis and Minnesota, because the Florida governments are complying with federal law. But when you have Democratic governments not complying with federal law in Minnesota, now you're going to see the drama. And boy, oh boy, I love this. And I can see the play. I can see Trump's play. He's allowing all this to take place for a while so they can talk their talk, feel confident, expose themselves, show their hands. So when the military swoops in and snatches these fuckers up and they come before the courts for prosecution, all the evidence will be documented. They're literally trying to create an insurrection. They're staging an insurrection. They're not even trying to. They're actually doing it.
To keep people safe.
And insurrection means enemy combatants. Enemy combatants means military law. Remember that.
To protect.
Remember when Q said military is the only way? This is why. Because you got corrupt governments that are in control of corrupt police departments that are being ordered to violate the law. So you can't trust them to execute their duties in enforcing the law if they're willing to violate it.
Protect our neighbors, to maintain order. And we're in a position right now where we have residents that are asking the very limited number of police officers that we have to fight ICE agents on the street, to stand by their neighbors.
You see the cop's face? You see the police chief's face? He's like, hell no. Because he knows. He's law enforcement. He knows how dangerous that shit is. But he's going to let Jacob Frey talk. He's just not going to go along with it. At least we can hope he's not.
We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another.
And the only reason why we're there, Jacob Frey, is because you and that retard Tim Walz are violating federal law and encouraging the people of your state and the law enforcement of your state to violate federal law. That's why we have that problem. The problem you're having, Jacob Frey, is the problem you and Governor Walz created. But you're going to sit there and act like it's not your fault. Typical Democrat bullshit. Bitch babble. Create a problem and then act like it's somebody else's fault that the problem exists. Bitch babble.
Why are we put in this position?
I just told you why you're put in that position. Because you put yourself in that position, you bitch.
No ICE agent ever run.
Oh my God. Oh, I forgot about these clowns. So the new Black Panthers that support the Democratic Party that's anti-gun, they're out in the streets with their guns. And listen to this fool. And these are the black idiots that are willing to die for the Democratic Party that couldn't care less about them and defend the illegal aliens who are subverting them and forcing them out of their communities and draining all the resources that could be diverted to reparations for Black Americans. These guys are idiots. This new Black Panther Party, this is not the party of Huey P. Newton, okay? This is not the group that Huey P. Newton started. This is some bizarro, mutated version of liberal lefty cuckolds trying to make a name for themselves. But they're fucking losers.
Run up on me. I guarantee you they won't. I'll put a hole in their chest the size of a window. Safe line repair, safe line replace. That's what's gonna happen. They touch me. Unarmed woman was killed by ICE. If you think you're about to come and brutalize the people while we're standing here, fuck around and find out. Our interactions with the police and ICE, and we hold them accountable. We hold them accountable. We patrol the community and we hold them accountable.
And his stupid black ass is about to be doing 30 years in federal prison because I don't know if you guys know about the feds, but they tend to be very biased against black criminals. And the white ones, they're going to get locked up. They're going to get a couple of years, but his black ass is going to get 40 years. Watch. Remember when they did it to Scam Master Jay with the NFAC, the Not Fucking Around Coalition? Yeah. You think they won't do it to you, you dumb fuck?
The Black Panther Party for self-defense, we're the same Panther Party from back in the day.
No, the fuck you ain't. No, the fuck you ain't. Because they were not Democratic. They were not Democratic cucks.
But we're a little more aggressive now, you dig? Carry bigger guns and we don't take no shit. Places where there are a lot of immigrants at, I think that
you don't take no shit, but when you go to federal prison, you're going to be taking a whole lot of dick. So you keep talking tough, buddy. Keep talking tough.
the community around them needs to take special care to them and needs to start escorting them to and from everywhere to make sure that they're safe. Because
yeah, he wants to protect the illegal aliens. What a dummy.
ICE agents ain't gonna act like that if it's a bunch of people standing outside with assault rifles and shotguns. It's a semi-automatic shotgun. That means them shotgun shells that shoot out of a pump, they shoot them rapidly. If you
I don't know if there's any military trained people in the chat, but you guys heard what he just said, bragging about his semi-automatic shotgun. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but shotgun shells are plastic. And when you have a semi-automatic shotgun, they jam a lot, especially if you're engaged in full-on combat and you're doing mag dumps. By the time he empties that first mag, first of all, the magazine only holds like 5 rounds. So after he fires the first 5 rounds and the chamber heats up, that plastic, when he loads that second magazine, that plastic is going to start to get soft and it's going to warp and it's going to leave residue inside the chamber. And by the time he dumps that second magazine and he's ready to load his third magazine, he'll be lucky if he can even chamber a round. This is why combat soldiers do not use semi-automatic shotguns. If you ever seen squads doing door breaching exercises, the shotgunner always uses a pump action shotgun. And that's for a reason, because a semi-automatic shotgun is not the most combat effective weapon. Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah, it's got a big old muzzle, big old barrel on the muzzle, and it's got big old bullets that go in it that can do a lot of damage if you can get them chambered. But when that shit heats up and that plastic starts warping, he's a sitting duck. He's a dead man walking. And anybody that's combat experienced or combat trained knows this. He's setting himself up for failure. If he thinks that he's going to go to war with the federal government with a semi-automatic shotgun, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Not only that, but a shotgun itself has a limited range. So if he's up against a fighting force that's using fully automatic or even semi-automatic rifles that actually fire rifle rounds that has, the brass shell casings, that rifle will have a much longer range, which means he could be picked off before he can get in range with his shotgun, and a higher rate of fire and more reliability when the gun heats up. So he'll be out of range. His rounds won't be able to reach the targets, but the targets can reach him, and his weapon will be rendered ineffective by the time he's ready to switch to the third magazine. So yeah, they can be out there all dressed up and looking nice and talking tough and all that shit, but they're going to lose if they try to do that. They're going to lose. And this guy is an absolute clown. And anybody who's dumb enough to follow this fool, woe be unto them.
if you are going to legally arm yourself with something bigger than what they got. Those who serve in the public, they should be fearful of the public. They should be fearful that the public's going to be dissatisfied with their.
Not to mention FBI, Homeland Security snipers, they carry 50 cals. And a 50 cal can hit you from damn near a mile away. So good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Their job that they're doing, not feeling like they're tyrants, not feeling like they're bullies because they got guns and body armor and walkie-talkies. That makes them immune to whatever the people would do. I think you want to correct the ideology of the pig and the mentality of the slave catcher. You meet them with equal force. All power to the motherfucking people.
No power. Yeah, he talks a good talk. But this is what you call a professional agitator. And what he's going to do is he's going to initiate He's one of those people whose job it is to initiate the violence between the people and the feds. And when the feds start to use force against the people, he'll be nowhere to be found. And when people start getting killed, he'll be one of the first ones on the news to play victim. And all that tough talk he's doing right here, it's gonna go right out the window.
To the pig. ICE agent.
These people are fucking idiots. The whole Democratic Party, they're idiots. And look at this dumbass. American citizen somehow found himself fucked up with ICE.
Can you tell us about your injuries now and the prognosis? Will you be blind in that eye for life?
From what I've heard the doctors say and everyone else, yes, I will be blind for life.
And I believe that's a woman pretending to be a man, by the way. His voice sounds crazy and his fingernails are painted. These people are weirdos. Why would you go out there and risk your life for these motherfuckers?
They said my globe was ruptured. I had my lower lid was cut up and they had to take skin from my temple to fix it.
And you would have been fine if you would have just stayed your ass in the house and let ICE do their job and mind your fucking business. This is why you mind your fucking business. And black people, I'm telling you right now, do not go side with these dumbass idiot liberals. Please don't. Because if you believe that the federal government is racist and the Trump administration is racist, then you should be aware that if I take my black ass out there, I'm going to get it worse than these white liberals. If that's your position, that should be even more of a deterrent to join these people. Do not side with these people because they're going to use you as cannon fodder. They're going to put you on the front lines to take the brunt of all the brutalization, lose your lives, lose your freedom, so they can get on TV and play victim. Don't fuck with these people. Do not. Let them go hang themselves.
There's a lot to it. I don't remember all the things that they said. I have fractures in my skull that they can't fix, and I can't sneeze or cough because it's dangerous too. I remember also when I shot, there was pepper in it, and I had pepper down my throat. It made it hard to breathe for a long time. They pulled a piece of plastic the size of a nickel out of my eye. They said I had shards of metal, glass, and plastic all throughout my eye and behind my eye and in my skull. And they also said that I had a piece of shrapnel metal about a few millimeters.
And you know how you see how this person is going through all their injuries and playing victim, but you know what they never say? They'll never say, the they, them will never say what they did to provoke that shit. Because at these rallies, there's dozens of people, sometimes hundreds of people, but there's always just a few that get fucked up. And you know why that is? Because those are the few that take it to the next level and decide to get violent. I don't feel bad for these people, and neither should you. I'm glad he got fucked up. And I hope more of them get themselves fucked up. And I hope ICE gets real heavy-handed with them and starts slamming their heads in the concrete and dragging them off to jail, because our country is at war. And part of that war is against these crooked politicians and bringing them to justice, and also removing these sleeper cells that are made up of the military-aged illegal immigrant males, the illegal alien males that were brought in under Joe Biden. And when those illegal aliens are given the order to turn up in the streets and start killing Americans, these same liberals that are out here protecting these illegals, they're going to be victims in that shit too. So they're literally fighting and defending people who not only do not have their best interest at heart, but would harm them if given the order. These people are dumb and they're suicidal.
Meters away from my carotid artery, and they said it was a miracle. I
give a fuck about your carotid artery. So here's Nick Shirley with the being confronted by some big fat Somali, and this dumb fat fuck is trying to berate Nick Shirley for exposing the Somali fraud. And listen to the stupid shit he says. These people are fucking idiots.
We're not
because of fucking 2,000 providers. Are you fucking mad? Are you stupid?
I'm not stupid. You're stupid. We're the transportation company.
What about if a mass shooting happens in Minnesota? It will be because of you. It will be because of you. If any Somali gets hurt in Minnesota, it's because of Nick fucking Shirley.
If any Somali gets hurt in Minnesota, it is because of Nick fucking Shirley. No, they're not going to get hurt. They just going to get sent the fuck back to Somalia. You fat fuck.
This is about fraud.
Single Somali gets.
See, Nick Shirley's exposing the fraud, and this big fat fucker is trying to play victim. Black Americans do not side with these people. And this is why, and this shit right here is what gives me more of an appreciation for FBA. Even though I don't agree with the label and I don't agree with the definition of the label, I do agree with the sentiments that Black Americans do not align with these people because these people do not have your best interest at heart. Shout out to Rapunzel for the Cash App. She says, salute. And shout out to my good brother Lee14224 on the PayPal. Appreciate that support. We got 2 supporters so far, and we are almost 2 hours in. Let's get it. These fucking, I'm sorry. I got flustered for a second. At least the Black Americans that are leaning towards FBA recognize that these motherfuckers are not them and are not on their side. And that's a good thing because that's what's stopping so many Black people from joining in with these ICE protests to try to defend these illegals. And that's good because these same illegals, these same Somalians, these same Somalis were the ones siphoning off the tax money with their fake shell companies. And that same tax money could have went to reparations for Black Americans. You think them Somalis give a fuck? You think they care about that shit? No, they don't. They do not.
Sir,
this is about fraud, sir.
You sensationalize this. You son of a bitch. Sensationalize this.
Wow, you're very nice.
Out of our neighborhood.
Very nice.
Get the fuck out of our
sir,
neighborhood.
Can you tell me where the transportation company is?
Out of our neighborhood. We don't want you here. Get the fuck out of here. Calm down.
Calm down, sir.
Get the fuck out of here.
Sir, this is about fraud.
You wanted clicks?
You're sensationalizing yourself,
you
sir.
You wanted clicks?
You're sensationalizing yourself.
You wanted clicks? You wanted the YouTube?
Tell me where the transportation vehicle is.
Clicks? You got YouTube clicks. Now get the fuck out of our community.
Tell me where the transportation vehicle is.
This motherfucker can barely speak English talking about get the fuck out of my community. Get the fuck out of my community.
Tell me where the
these fucking people are idiots.
This is about fraud. This is about fraud.
Now he's a racist. You see how he's throwing out that racist label? That's to try to appeal and pander to Black Americans. But the Black Americans ain't with it. There's just a few dummies that are still with that shit, but most Black Americans, and I will say this, I got to give it to the FBAs. I have to give it to the FBAs for smartening up and recognizing their Americanism right before all this happened. Because now that this is happening and the ICE raids are happening and the illegals are getting mopped up, the media is trying to make this push to make it seem like ICE is racist and all this dumb shit. And FBAs ain't falling for it. They're not going for it. And I love to see it. They're in silent revolt. And that's the best way to do it in a situation like this. I don't see too many of them on the internet, supporting ICE and saying that we need to get these illegals out of here. There's a few of them that are, but most of them are like, not my circus, not my monkeys. And that's the best way to handle it. Let ICE do their job and get these people out of here. Now, see, with the Somalis, it would have been a lot easier to defend them if they weren't involved in such large-scale fraud. Because then you could say, well, they've been here for 20, 30 years. They haven't committed any crimes. They're not robbing anybody. The majority of their households are not siphoning welfare money. They're actually making a living for themselves and they're doing well for themselves. So leave them alone. That's a little bit more defensible. But when you have this group of people that's been in the country for 30 years and scamming for 30 fucking years, they got to go. They got to get the hell out of here. There's no defending that. None. And anybody trying to defend that is an idiot.
Say I don't want Muslims here. Say it. I want to change the Constitution.
No, I don't want to change the Constitution.
Freedom of religion, and I don't want Muslim Somalis in Minnesota. Kick them out.
No, we don't want scamming ass Somalis anywhere.
I was born in this country. You have to take the passport away from me. Relax. That is what you are arguing for.
We're not talking.
Change the Constitution.
This is about fraud.
Sir,
appreciate it.
Get the fuck out of our community.
This is about fraud.
Get the fuck out of our community. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Stupid fucking idiot.
Tell me where the transportation company is then.
Get the fuck out of here.
Obviously, for this video, we had to get security because look at this now. All right. We're gone. We're gone.
And them Africans are some violent ass motherfuckers. You see what they do to each other on their continent. They're some violent ass motherfuckers.
But there is no transportation company in there. We're not sacrificing.
No transportation company because it's a damn scam.
You don't step out.
It's a goddamn scam. Okay, I think that's it for the videos. Let me see if I got anything.
An understanding of what it means to be a boy or a girl.
All right, look at this. And if it gets ran over, I don't know if that's a man or a woman, so I'm going to say it. And if it gets ran over, everybody's going to play the victim. Kobe says, so much money missing in economy. It's going to take 50 years to get this shit back right. Nah, I don't think so, Kobe, because once these Somalis start getting arrested and the governors and the mayors that are in league with the scams start getting arrested, their funds, their assets are going to be seized, which means all the mansions and the cars that they've been buying and the jewelry and all that shit is going to be seized and liquidated. And the money in their bank accounts, since it's all fraudulent money or it's mixed in with fraudulent money, that's all going to be seized. So the money will come back very, very quickly, a lot faster than you can blink. Once they get arrested, asset forfeiture kicks in and all their shit gets seized. So I wouldn't worry too much about that because the money's there. The money is there. It's just not in the hands of the people. It's in the hands of the criminals. But once the criminals are brought to justice, that money then goes back to the government, which will then flow back into the hands of the people by way of stimulus checks, dividends, that type of shit, tax returns, that type of shit. So Trump, let me go back to the slideshow really quick because I think we're only on slide 8. Was Renee Good obligated to comply with ICE agents' orders? And this is from the New York Times. But look at the headline. Was this civilian who was in violation of the law obligated to comply with law enforcement? Well, obviously she was. Because if you're under arrest and the cop tells you get out the car and you don't get out the car, they now have justifiable reason to use force. So yes, she was obligated to comply with the ICE agent, but the left-wing media is trying to spin this as if she had some sort of legal right to hit the officer with her car. First, they try to lie and say she didn't hit the officer with the car. Then the videos came out with all the different angles, and now they're forced to admit that she hit him with the car. So then they had to double down and change their story and say, well, he didn't have to use force. Do you know that ICE agent now has internal bleeding because of that impact? Yeah, he suffered internal bleeding. And internal bleeding comes from blunt force trauma. And where does blunt force trauma come from? I don't know. Getting hit by the front of a fucking vehicle square in the chest. Thank you, Sam I Am. Of course she was. But just the mere fact that the New York Times is even publishing this article lets you know that they're trying to brainwash the American people into believing that they don't have to comply with law enforcement. And for the dummies that are going to read this article and believe it, they're going to find themselves in a world of hurt. But that's what they want. So the same liberal media that's pushing this propaganda and hyping people up and putting the battery in their back to go out and do stupid shit is basically leading these people to the slaughterhouse. They're leading them into putting themselves in danger in hopes that harm comes to them. Because if harm comes to them, then they can spin the story in the news and make it seem like, oh, ICE is evil and they're killing Americans and all this bullshit and blah, blah, blah. When in reality, these Americans are putting themselves at risk for absolutely no reason that benefits them at all. Because it's their tax money, too, that the Somalis are stealing. It's their tax money, too, that's going to fund these illegal aliens all across the country. And they don't seem to have a problem with it. But when it's time to give black people reparations, there's all these fucking excuses, though. And this is why it blows my mind to see black people, no matter how few, supporting the illegal aliens and supporting the Democratic Party. Because this is the same political party that told you we don't have money to give you niggas reparations. But you got money to give the illegals all types of fucking welfare, though. Black people should be the loudest voices in support of ICE because they were the ones that were harmed the most by this influx of illegals. It was their neighborhoods that were taken over. It was their schools and their classrooms that were flooded. And those government funds in the welfare system was designated for the poor folks in these poor Democratic areas, who majority of them happen to be black folks. You know how many black people had their food stamps cut just so they could give money to the illegals? Yeah, it happened. Brandon Johnson did it in Chicago. It happened. Now, Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy troops to Minnesota. And when Trump threatens to do something, you best believe he's going to fucking do it. And the fact that Tim Walz and Jacob Frey are not showing any signs of complying, and they're doubling down on their resistance, they're going to get it. They're going to get it, because when the Insurrection Act is invoked and military forces move in, everybody from the top down is now on the chopping block. Everybody. And the military don't play. And they will take one night to go around that whole city in small squads and black Suburbans, and they will kick in doors, flashbang these motherfuckers in their bedrooms, drag them out in the freezing cold in their drawers, and render them to a black site somewhere where they'll never be seen or heard from again. Because our nation is at war, and these people are enemy combatants. They are insurgents. And what we're witnessing is an insurgency. And what's going to happen when the military gets deployed is the counterinsurgency. You see, folks like us and Nick Shirley and the rest of us that are exposing this shit and countering the mainstream media narrative as they try to push the propaganda, we're doing our part in the counterinsurgency. But the real counterinsurgency, see, the insurgency stems from the misinformation and disinformation agents in the mainstream media to the command and controllers in the government and the idiots on the street, the useful idiots on the street who are basically throwing themselves in harm's way. That's the entire insurgency. And the counterinsurgency, in our role in alternative media, our role in the counterinsurgency is to counter the mainstream media propaganda narrative, to inform people that, hey, you're being lied to. Hey, you're being suckered into doing something that's harmful to yourself and to your family and to your community. You're being robbed. You're being scammed. You're being defrauded. And what the Trump administration is trying to do is put a stop to that shit. So those resources that are being scammed and robbed and defrauded from you can be funneled back into programs that will benefit you and your community, instead of being funneled into the hands of foreign invaders. And I think Trump's actually going to do it. She said she did it for attention. So this woman here, and these are the sick black liberals that are willing to put their lives on the line. This woman, 11-month-old Harvey Mucklebust, was suffocated to death at a Minnesota daycare by a daycare worker. Minnesota is a sick place rife with mental illness. And listen to me, white people. This is not the first time that black daycare workers, mainly black female daycare workers, have harmed white children. And there's this racist vein amongst black liberals where they're taught to hate white people, and they will victimize your children. Do not send your kids to a daycare in a liberal city where there's black women working there. I hate to say it that way because I love my sisters, but a lot of these women are racist and they will harm your fucking child. I've seen it. I've seen the horror stories a million fucking times over. And this is sad because a baby is a baby, a child is a child. So even if you hate white people and got a problem with the parents, to take it out on the child is just pure evil. I don't even want to send my kids to daycare because I know myself. And I'm not going to be sitting there doing no news interview, sobbing and crying because my kid got harmed in the daycare. I will be in that daycare harming people. I will hurt some folks and I will go to prison over my children. S. Green, you don't have to agree with it, but what you can do is educate yourself and go look up the stories. Every single case of an innocent white child being harmed in these daycares in these liberal cities, it was at the hands of a black female daycare worker, because the black female liberals are sick in the fucking head. Not every black woman, but because there's so many of them, you can't tell who's who. So now you have to avoid them. It's just like young black men with skinny jeans. I'm a black man myself, but I'm going to tell you right now, them little young YNs with them skinny jeans, some of them are criminals and gangsters and violent criminals, and some of them are just regular young men that are following the trends. But when I see a young black man with skinny jeans, I'm on edge. I'm cautious. I pop the safety off my concealed carry because they've built a reputation. That's a negative one. So now I have to operate with caution. It's like if you got bitten by a venomous snake before and you know how bad it hurts and how painful it is and how harmful it is. And then somebody puts a barrel of snakes in front of you. Some are venomous, some are not. But you can't tell which is which. Would you stick your hand in there? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't, because even though you know not every snake in that barrel is even going to bite you, you also know that there are snakes in that barrel that will not only bite you, but will inject you with venom. And these black women that work in these daycares that have been harming these white children, it's scary. And it's scary enough for me to take a stance and say, I will not enroll. If I'm a white person, I'm not putting my kid in the care of no black woman in no liberal city. I'm not doing it because I can't trust them anymore. And you might not agree, and it might sound offensive, but don't get mad at me. Get mad at these bitches for doing the shit that they're doing and creating the reputation that they're creating. Get mad at them for that. Don't be mad at me for saying it. Get mad at them for doing it. This bitch killed a kid, a baby. And there's 1,000 more stories across the country just like this. Sam, I don't care who it is that harmed my child. I don't look at man or woman or he or she when it comes to harm, self-defense, and vengeance. It's it. That's it. If it harms me or harms my child, it must be put in the dirt. Yeah, they work in those nursing homes too, and they be beating up on the old white people. They be beating up on the old white people. Oh, Kobe, I got a whole stream about CPS. 85% of trafficked children come from CPS custody. Yeah. And S. Green, I'm not saying this to offend you, my sister. I'm saying this out of love, because if black women as a whole that are not evil like this woman spoke out against this and differentiated themselves from these types of women, that reputation would not, it would not exceed the bounds of these racist black liberal women. As long as it's a black woman that's a racist liberal and it's known that she's a racist liberal, you can differentiate. But when somebody speaks about these wicked individuals, especially when they happen to be black women, and the subject is about these black women that do this wicked, evil shit, other black women and black people as a whole tend to get defensive and want to, their first instinct is to want to defend these people. Like, oh, don't be talking about black women like that. You bashing black women. No, I'm not bashing black women. I'm bashing baby murderers, of whom too many of them happen to be black women. That's what I'm doing. And I don't like it, because in my family, I have black women in my family too. And I do not want people like this to make the reputation, to form the reputation by which society is going to judge the decent black women that I love. So I'm going to call this shit out. And I'm going to point this shit out. You got to listen. These black liberal women, they lead the way in, or the stats in, abortions. So if these women are willing to kill their own children before they're born, what the fuck do you think they'll do to your children? It's dangerous out there. And this all comes from the propaganda. This is why when I hear those pro-blacks talk about how the white man's the devil and all this bullshit, I can't help but think, ain't no white man ever did shit to me. Every time I've had a gun pulled on me or I had to harm somebody in self-defense, it was another black man. Yeah, she could be a tether. She could be a tether. And I wouldn't be surprised if she is, because what I have noticed as well, and I have to be honest, is a lot of these Caribbean folks, when they come to America, they buy into that liberal racist propaganda hook, line, and sinker. So while black Americans and white Americans are getting along just fine and dandy, in come the tethers with their racist bullshit. And the reason why they operate that way is because back home in their countries, the only exposure to American culture that they get is mainstream media. And if mainstream media is broadcasting this racist narrative, they're going to come to America with that racist narrative in their minds. And they will act on it if given the chance. This is pure evil. This is pure evil. And it does not make me proud to say that too many black women have been in these situations and have committed these kinds of crimes. It does not bring me joy to say it, but it's the truth. It's the fucking truth. Kobe says they rich off embezzlement. They ain't got to do crime. Well, Kobe, that statement kind of doesn't make any sense, because embezzlement is a crime, brother. Embezzlement is a crime. Do you know, since 1973, when Roe v. Wade was passed, over 50 million is the number. Over 50 million black babies have been aborted by their black mothers. 50 million. In New York City, I believe it was in 2019 or 2018, it was recorded in New York City that of all the black women who had abortions, that number exceeded the number of black women who actually gave birth to their children. And this all stems from the liberal propaganda. When you say dangerous misinformation, this is what we mean. Propaganda that pollutes the minds of otherwise sane and thinking people, because she was working at a daycare. So she had to have sat through a job interview. She had to have had a resume, which means she's held jobs before. which means she was somewhat functional enough to slip her crazy ass through the cracks and get in there. But she had evil in her heart, and that evil in her heart was played upon by the racist leftist media propaganda, and she thought it would be cool to suffocate a baby. A fucking baby. I can't imagine how many abortions she had. And I think that should be a litmus test. If they believe in abortion, and that's for any race of woman, not just the black women. If you own a daycare and you're hiring female staff, I think one of the questions on your questionnaire should be, have you had any abortions? If yes, how many? And if they had any abortions, don't hire them because they're child murderers. I think that should be the litmus test. Because if she's willing to murder her own child, there's a very good chance that she'll murder your child if she can justify it in her mind. And this is fucking sad, and it makes black women look bad. And as decent black women out there, you should not defend this shit, and you should definitely not push back against people who are calling this shit out. Because pushing back against people calling it out for what it is, because that's what it is, it makes you look just as guilty. It makes you look like you condone this shit, even though you may not. It puts you right in the box with the rest of them, and you have to differentiate yourself from them. And whether she's a tether or she's FBA or whatever, it doesn't even matter. The fact is, she's a child murderer, and she's another one of those liberal black women brainwashed by the left-wing media propaganda, radicalized into being a racist, so racist, in fact, that she'll murder a baby just because the baby's white. And that is disgusting. And I had to show you all this because this is the type of radical mind that these anti-ICE protesters are trying to appeal to get out in the streets to get themselves killed by ICE and arrested by the military. These are the types of people. This is who they're targeting to be Operation Hide Behind the Darkies. And of course, this fool that got himself shot to death by the ICE agent, his daughter now is screaming Black Lives Matter because they're trying to invoke black people to join in with the ICE protesters. In retrospect, it was kind of suspicious when the president hired 80,000 guys with masks and machine guns and sent them to cities that didn't vote for him. Dan Brooks says this. And this is how the propaganda spreads. You got all these talking heads on TV that are spreading these lies and putting out this bullshit. First of all, Trump didn't hire 80,000 guys with masks and machine guns because it's not like they were sitting around in their tactical gear saying, hey, I need a job. And then Trump called them up like, hey, you got a mask and a machine gun? Why don't you go down there to Minnesota and bust some heads for me? S. Green, how about this? I'll do you a favor. How about you sit it out permanently? The self-hate. How the fuck is it self-hate for calling out a baby murderer? How is it self-hate? How is it self-hate for calling out abortion facts? These are facts that you can go research. So if you think it's self-hate, then maybe you should sit it out. So I just did you a favor and blocked your ass. So now you can permanently sit it out. Thank you for your contribution, though. Your presence is no longer needed. Goodbye. And you don't have to announce that you're leaving. Just shut the fuck up and go. Because if you're going to sit there and expect me to not call out a baby murdering bitch, then I can't help but think you're condoning that shit. No, she's saying I hate myself because I'm calling out a bitch that murdered babies. Because I'm calling out these bitches that murdered their babies. She's saying I hate myself. And that's cool. Let me hate myself on my fucking show and go watch something else. Why don't you go watch Ghetto Gaggers? That's what bitches like you like anyway. Seeing white men shove their dicks down your throats. Why don't you go do that? Go fantasize about some white man. Never mind. Forget it. Never mind. I had a few sips of bourbon and I'm lit right now. I'm fucking lit right now. I'm amped. Ah, I'm ready to go. Ah. Hang on a second. Get my shiznit together. And I'm sorry, S. Green, but you got to go. Because once you come in my chat talking about self-hate when I'm speaking fucking facts, you got to get the fuck out of here. You don't belong here. You're lacking intelligence and self-awareness. And you know what, S. Green, if you are a black woman, in fact, what you fail to realize while you sit there calling me a self-hater, what you fail to realize is that baby murdering bitch is probably the reason why you're having such a hard time finding a job or getting favor with other groups of people, because there's a bunch of these racist ass black liberal women that are running around spewing racism and making all black women look bad. And this is why nobody fucking likes black women anymore. Do you know black women are the least desired for marriage around the world? You know why? It's because of these dumbed down feminist liberal black women in America who are on the internet making a fucking fool of themselves, and decent women, as I presume like yourself, who defend that bullshit. So you do yourself a disfavor. And if you see it as self-hate, you came to the wrong fucking place. Because I literally just got done commending black Americans for not getting involved in these ICE protests. So it's not like I started out dragging black people. This is not a drag black people conversation. This is a watch out for the fucking evil conversation. And if you're too immature to handle it, then you don't have to fucking be here. You don't even donate to me, so I really don't need you here. I have to sit this one out. I'll bench you. I'll put you on the bench for you. I'll do it for you. I will do it for you. Yeah, right, Jason M. The I don't need no man type shit. Yeah, them. That's why there's so many. You know why there's so many fatherless black kids in the community? It ain't because the black men are walking away, because black men are actually the best fathers. Statistically, black men are the best, most involved fathers in America of all racial groups. Black men, us, the ones that they've been saying for decades have been walking out on our families and abandoning our children. Now we know that's not fucking true, because when you look at the DNA testing, it's either 51 to 57% of black babies born to black mothers, when DNA tested, it turns out that the man that woman blamed to be the father is not the father. These bitches is hoes. That's why these kids don't have no fathers. Because they too busy out there hoeing, letting everybody nut up in them, and then they get pregnant and they don't know who the father is, so they run to Planned Parenthood and murder their child, or they give birth to the child and raise the child with no father. That's why there's so many fatherless black kids in the black community. That's why there's so many single mother households in the black community, because too many of them are hoes. That's why. Do you know, even in prostitution, statistically, black women are the cheapest prostitutes? So it's like they the biggest hoes and they can't even do that right. But I'm a self-hater, though. These are facts. I didn't make this up, and I surely did not make it this way. I'm just calling it like I see it. And just so you're aware, I too am one of those black men that had been alienated for a whole year from my black son. I've lived it. I have fucking lived it. I am living proof. And guess what? I had to go to court. I had to fight for my boy. And once I got my boy, every fucking time he comes to spend time with me, he goes home with a new skill, new knowledge, new clothes, feeling great, looking good, sharp. My man Edge up be sharp. And I cut his hair myself. And when I pick him up from his mom's, he's dusty. He's dirty. He's got a big ass gash on his forehead from falling down the stairs because he's being neglected. He's hungry as a dog, so he's eating up everything in the fucking refrigerator. I give him a bath. The fucking water's black coming off him because that's how much fucking dirt and dust accumulated on him because he's being neglected. And when he comes to dad's house, I had him, the last time I had him for an extended period of time was back in July for the summer. He came to me on training wheels. I sent him home riding on 2 wheels. This last holiday, he outgrew the bike that he learned to ride on. I got him a new bike. I got videos of my man zooming up and down the fucking park. Because I did that. Because that's my fucking job. And a lot of these black kids are suffering because they're fatherless, because their mothers won't allow them to do their job as fathers. And to make matters worse, they'll alienate the father from the kid, keep the kid away, and then say the father's a deadbeat. That's the worst fucking part. Or they'll alienate the kid, raise him up to be a bitch ass nigga, and then when he goes out and does some bitch ass nigga shit and gets himself in trouble, then they want to call the father to step in. But the kid already grew up without the father. The kid don't know the father. How can he possibly respect him? Yes, my child's mother is black. Of course she is. All 3 of my kids' mothers are black. All 3 of them. But my son, Anthony, my older son, because I got an older daughter, that's my oldest. My second child is Anthony, and my third child is Jalen. And Anthony, his mother was the one that alienated me from him. And now we kind of have a fragmented relationship. I barely ever get to fucking see him. And when I do get to see him, and you know what breaks my heart the most? The fact that his mother kept him away so long. Now he doesn't even have a relationship with his little brother. And that shit breaks my fucking heart. Because I want to get all my babies together. I want to see all my babies grow up together. And I can't do that because this woman keeps getting in the way of that. So when I talk about these dynamics with the broken black family, and I place the blame squarely on the women, not only am I speaking from my own experience, but I'm speaking from the experience of millions of other brothers out there that are flooding the court dockets with petitions to just try to be in their kids' lives. Why the fuck should a man have to go to court and beg? Why the fuck should a black man have to go to the white man court to get this white man judge that don't know his kid from Adam to tell this bitch that was just sucking this man's dick 2 years prior to let this man see his fucking kid? Why the fuck do we even have to do that? Because women like that ain't shit. That's why. That's why. That's why. So how is it possible that black men ain't shit and black men don't take care of their kids and black men walk out on their families and abandon their kids and their deadbeats and all this and that, but at the same time hold the #1 spot for being the best, most involved fathers? How is that possible? Somebody's lying. Somebody's fucking lying. And you know who's lying? Them same lying ass hoes. That's who's lying, because that's what hoes do, lie. So it ain't self-hate when I talk about this shit. It's facts. There's no hate involved whatsoever. It's facts. But I'm passionate about it because I personally have been affected by this toxic mentality that the liberals have fed our black women. I have been personally affected, and my son is going to be personally affected for the rest of his life. Yeah, the mothers neglect their boy children. They neglect their sons, and they also neglect their daughters. They're jealous of their daughters. You know how many cases of young black girls? Do you know 1 in every 4 black women in America had been sexually molested during their childhood? Did you know that? And you know who does the sexual molestation? It's usually somebody in the family, a grandfather, a uncle, a step sibling, or mama's boyfriend. And do you know the majority of black children that do get abused, whether physically or sexually, 90% of that shit happens when the child is in the mother's custody? Because the mother's not a protector. The mother is a nurturer. The father is a protector. But when you have kids being raised without the hedge of protection of a father, they're open to be victimized. So these women that think they're getting the upper hand by keeping the kids away from the father, they're putting their kids in harm's way. They're setting their kids up for failure in life as an adult. They're loading their kids up with all types of unnecessary trauma, and they're exposing them to all types of harm because predators seek out children who don't have fathers. There's an interview of a convicted child molester who had did his time in prison and got out of prison and sat down and did an interview with a reporter. And he was explaining to the reporter how these pedophiles like himself would target children. And you know what was one of the first things he said? He said, we observe and we watch. And if we notice that there's a man around in that child's life, whether it be an uncle, an older brother, a father, any male figure in that child's life, we write that child off. We don't target that child because it's too risky. But if it's a single mother with just the children, that's our target. So these women think they're doing themselves a service, and they think they're doing the right thing by their children, and they're harming their children. They're putting them in harm's way. Well, Jordan Smith, I would say for another race that's comparable to black women and how toxic they've become to the family dynamic, white women are a close second. And and I believe, and this is my opinion, I believe that those white women that do that shit, they're influenced by the black women who've made it par for the course. They're trying to be like the black women. They see the black women doing it and they think it's cool, so they want to do it. Because make no mistake about it, it happens in every race, but it's not nearly as rampant as in the black community. We talk about, oh, we got to come together and we have to build a community and we have to build family and build this and build that. But there's so many women out there that can't even cooperate with the fathers of their children. So how can we build a community if we can't even keep a family together? How? And I don't think anything is going to change this. The only thing that's going to change it is the courts awarding custody to the fathers. Because a child raised in a single mother household, and the facts and the statistics bear it out, no matter what the race is. But black children are at the highest risk because they tend to grow up in these environments where this type of shit is common. They're more likely to commit crimes, more likely to be hooked on drugs, more likely to go to jail or do prison time. Do you know 85% of the black men in prison come from single mother households? That's for a reason, because once a boy reaches a certain age, his mother can't control him anymore. And if he doesn't have the protection and the influence and the guidance of a decent man, a father or father figure, he's more likely to be absorbed by the streets and fall into that lifestyle. And do you know single father households, when it comes to the types of kids they produce, on average, they have similar outcomes as kids that are raised in two-parent households. And it's not to say that single mothers don't do their thing and they don't produce good children, because I know plenty of good kids that came from single mother households. But if you ask them how their life was, when they tell you their life story and their upbringing as a child, it's horrific. And they had to work extra hard to get away from that shit and make something of themselves, because they didn't have the support that they needed. They didn't have the guidance that they needed, because a woman can't teach a man how to deal with the world, because the challenges that a woman faces in the world are vastly different than the challenges a man faces in the world. Positive Queen says she felt like something in the pot and the weave was causing her to act out. Since she has stopped, she has more clarity. I'm just saying. Is that Positive Queen? Is that in reference to this story here with the woman that killed the baby? Is that what you're referring to? Because if that's the case, I can actually believe that. I really can believe that, because a lot of these weaves and hair pieces that black women like to wear, that the especially the real human hair, do you know in a lot of countries where they import that shit from, they harvest that from corpses? They harvest that hair. Oh, she says, no, I just got here. They harvest that hair from dead people. And God knows what kind of spiritual entities are attached to that shit. And I believe that what's plaguing these wayward black women that are destroying the black family intentionally because they can't control their own behavior, I think it has a lot to do with demonic spirits and demonic entities. I think it does. But they get mad at us black men for saying stop wearing weave too. So it's like we can't tell them shit. This is why, listen, the woman is the glue that holds the family and the community together. The men are the protectors, the providers, and the builders of the community. But when it comes to the upbringing of the next generation, it's the woman's job to teach the kids the right way to go. And part of that teaching is teaching the kids how to respect male authority. That's why a lot of young black men end up fighting the police and getting their asses shot off, because they were raised in a household where there was no male authority, and they watched their mothers disrespect men and talk bad about their fathers their whole lives. So they don't recognize male authority, and they don't realize the level of harm that can come to them by disrespecting male authority. So they get out in the streets, and the shit that their fathers should have been there to teach them, they learn it the hard way at the hands of the police. And it's really sad and disappointing. But anyway, I went on a rant, but I really wanted to address this slide right here. And listen, let me just conclude by saying this. This is not a knock at black women. If you love your kids, you're going to tell your kids that they're fucking up and they need to get their shit together. But if you see the neighbor's kids fucking up, those are not your kids. Your level of care and love for that child, in terms of guiding them and raising them right, is their responsibility, just like your child is your responsibility. So when I state these facts and I point out these critical points where black women are failing their children and failing the community as a whole, it's out of love. It's not out of hatred. And to call it self-hatred is even more ridiculous. Because even if it was out of hatred, it's out of hatred for you. So there's no way I can hate myself if I'm openly expressing my hatred for you. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm offering correction by pointing out the problem. And part of that correction is, as decent Black women, you live your life in such a way that's conducive to you eventually having a husband, having a family, respecting that man, teaching your kids to respect that man's authority, and raising your kids together as a team. Instead of falling for the liberal propaganda that all I need is a child support check and my food stamps and I could do it by myself because I don't need no man. That bullshit right there is what got us in the mess that we're in right now. And that's the shit that needs to change. So I say this out of love, not hatred. And that's why I blocked that other woman for saying I'm a self-hater or whatever the fuck stupid shit she said. Because if that's her response to what I'm saying, that means she didn't hear a fucking thing I said. Which in a sense kind of makes her a prime example of what I'm talking about when I say Black women don't respect Black men enough. Because she didn't even have enough respect for me to actually try to understand what I was saying. If you have a question, ask the question. If you disagree with something, tell me where you disagree. We can discuss it. I have no problem with that. But to come out your mouth and call me a self-hater when I said nothing self-deprecating, that just means you're offended. You don't like what I'm saying. You don't care that it's true. You're just upset that I'm saying it, so I shouldn't say it. So I should just let these murderous Black women keep murdering these white babies in these daycares and making all Black women look like psychotic racist murderers, right? I should just let that fly, right? Right? Hardly seems productive. But anyway, so back to this slide. In retrospect, it was kind of suspicious when the president hired 80,000 guys with masks and machine guns and sent them to cities that didn't vote for him. The implication is these guys were wearing their ski masks and sitting around with their machine guns, and Trump said, "Hey, boys, you want to go bust some brown people's heads? Come with me." That's not the case. And the cities that didn't vote for Trump are the same cities that voted for the Democrats that opened up the borders to bring in all the illegals. And so now ICE has to go in and get rid of the illegals. It's that simple. It's that simple. But because the Democratic cities are the cities where this problem exists and persists, now they're going to spin it and try to make it political when it's not political. It's about America. Shout out to my man D. Allen. He says, keep speaking that truth. Appreciate the cash app, my brother. That makes 3 supporters so far, and we are at 2 hours and 39 minutes. So shout out to y'all. Excuse me. Sorry. Damn, I just coughed in the mic. I didn't mean to do that. Democrat Rep Thanadar, I think his name is Thanadar. I don't know what his first name is. Says he will introduce abolish ICE bill this week to abolish ICE. And this Thanadar guy, he can barely speak English. I don't know where the fuck he's from, but he was the one that introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. He's some clown from Massachusetts. I don't know how the fuck people in Massachusetts even elected this clown that can barely speak English, but now he wants to abolish ICE. But here we have a classic example of foreign infiltration into our U.S. Congress. This man is a dual citizen. He shouldn't even fucking be in Congress. But now he wants to abolish ICE and protect his fellow foreigners, the illegals, with this goofy ass legislation that the Democrats are probably going to vote for in mass. Yes, this googly eye maniac right here. He wants to abolish ICE. And you know what? The Democrats are behind him 100%. But guess what's going to happen? His bill is going to fail. And it's about time that Americans start looking at these people for who they are. They are not Americans. They do not have America's. Yeah, he's from India. They do not have American. I can smell the curry through the screen. Can you? And I happen to like curry. That Indian curry be a little too hot. Yeah, Shri. That's his name. Shri Thanadar. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Shri Thanadar. Fucking absolute clown. Foreign infiltrator. trying to stop American citizens from protecting America. Oh, he's from Michigan. My bad. I thought Massachusetts. Michigan. Okay. Trying to stop American citizens from protecting America from foreign infiltration because he himself is a foreign infiltrator, just like Ilhan Omar is a foreign infiltrator. 85% of our Congress has dual citizenship. How is that even possible? I'll tell you how. Because too many American citizens have become disillusioned with our political system and refuse to get involved. And when you sit it out, what happens is these foreigners come in, they see that open door and they take advantage of it, and then they find themselves in positions of power. And now you got a bunch of foreigners in your country that can barely speak English, making laws that you now have to live by. Something's wrong. Something is seriously wrong. After fatal ICE murder in Minneapolis, Black Panther Party pulls up to protest in Philadelphia. So this is a picture from the video that I showed you guys earlier with this clown right here with the automatic shotgun, talking like an automatic shotgun is a combat effective weapon when it's actually a suicide mission to engage in live combat with an automatic shotgun. It's not an effective combat weapon. It's a great recreational gun, but it's not good to use in situations where you're being shot at. But they're out there with their big guns to do what? To defend the illegal aliens, to keep the illegal aliens in America, to keep them here so they can continue to subvert black people. This new Black Panther Party, these clowns, they are not your friends, Black America. They are friends of the Democratic Party and the illegal aliens. They do not care about you, Black Americans. Because if they did, where were they when black folks was marching for reparations? Where were they? Nowhere to be found. But now it's time to march for the illegals. And I know they're getting paid to be out there. We know that. Because there is absolutely no logical reason for any Black American to defend these illegal aliens. None. Absolutely none at all. And if you think the white people is racist against your black ass, oh, wait till these illegals get power in this country. You just wait. You just wait. Because these people come from countries where rights don't exist. And if they're able to gain a foothold in this country and seize power, they will treat you as if your rights don't exist. And these black clowns out here defending this shit are actually working against the best interest of Black Americans. These dudes are not your friend. They are your enemy. And I'm begging and pleading with Black Americans. Do not support these fucking idiots. Do not go out there having these fools' backs and get yourself killed. Don't do it. Leave them out there hang them out there to dry. They support the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is against guns. So even their whole ideology is contradictory. These men are idiots. These men are absolute idiots. And if you follow these idiots, you're going to make yourself an idiot. And you're going to lose every fucking time because you're following losers. Shout out to my man Calvert. He says, keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate you, Calvert. Thank you for that support on the Cash App, my good brother. I got to check the Citizen Man Cash App from time to time because people be hitting the Citizen Man Cash App during the show, and I don't see it because I don't get alerts. So I got to keep an eye on that. So what is that? 3, 4 supporters so far now? We got 1 on the PayPal, 3 on the Cash App. Yeah, 1 on the PayPal, 3 on the Cash App. Shout out to y'all for that support, man. I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Okay, let me turn this vibrate off my phone because you guys could probably hear that shit in the mic. Please don't support these clowns. These guys are clowns. They're clowns. They're fighting for a cause that they don't even realize is antithetical to their own cause. Yeah, Positive Queen. They're sellouts. This is the literal definition of a sellout. So before you fix your face to try to call me a fucking sellout, them niggas is sellouts. They're the fucking sellouts. Where were we, in the gallery? Yeah, we were in the gallery. And when Trump declares the Insurrection Act and the military gets deployed, if these guys are out there, they are going to be target number one. They're going to be high priority targets because they're armed. And this clown right here already been making threats to kill federal agents. So he's going to be the first one. And they're not going to go after them in the streets while they're out there with their gear and their guns on. They're going to sit back and they're going to watch. And they're going to let them talk their shit and let them rally and let them be out there playing tough guy. And then when they go to bed at night and they put their rifles down and they strip down to their drawers to get comfortable to go to sleep, they might get a good couple hours of sleep and then boom, flashbang goes off in the bedroom. And then they get dragged out in the cold in their drawers and rendered to a black site where they'll never be seen again. That's what they're setting themselves up for. And the paymasters who are cutting their checks, they know this. That's why the people who cut the checks to these sellouts, you don't ever see them. Y'all think I'm playing. Y'all think I'm fucking playing. Well, you watch. You watch. And remember a couple of years ago when the new Black Panthers was out talking they shit in support of the Democrat Party? You notice how you don't see those guys anymore? Guess where they are? Federal prison. Look at these fools. Look at these clowns. Look at them. Look at him. Look at that gut. You think he's look at him. His gut is literally hanging over his belt line. Like, you are not combat ready, sir. You are not combat ready. That's crazy. It's crazy to see these fucking people out here just making a fool of themselves. More Democrat lawmakers say Department of Justice prosecutors are investigating them over military video. And that video was the video where they all came out and said and told the military not to follow Trump's orders, trying to play it off as if, yeah, of course, the Allens, it's always the small hats, trying to play it off as if they were saying don't follow illegal orders. So who's the military supposed to take orders from? You motherfuckers? But I'm glad that the Department of Justice is investigating these Democrats, because as a result of these investigations, there will be arrests, because all these Democrats got their hands in the pot. They're all committing fraud. They're all crooked as shit. And that's the sole reason why they even thought to seek out power in the first place. They're not there to serve the people. They're there to serve themselves. And serve themselves is exactly what they're doing. And they are not going to stop until somebody stops them. So shout out to the DOJ for putting them under the microscope. Now, speaking of the small hats, ADL leader Jonathan Greenblatt says Americans who criticize Jews and Israel will be monitored by the FBI. We will monitor social media and check your bank accounts. No, the fuck you ain't. You might think so, but your ass is being monitored by the FBI. Your bank account is being checked, and you're under the gun. And Israel is about to get leveled by Iran. You wait and see. Saudi Arabia welcomes U.S. labeling Muslim Brotherhood branches as terrorist organizations. Now, you would think Muslim Brotherhood, they don't have shit to do with Israel. Well, guess what? The Israeli Mossad, they run the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood. Every Muslim terrorist organization in the world is led by Israeli Mossad agents, every single one of them. And the reason why Israel did this was because the actual Muslim countries in the Middle East that know about these small hats and know that they're a menace to society and know that they serve no interest in the Middle East at all, and understand that getting rid of them will actually restore peace to the Middle East, those tend to be the more peaceful Muslim groups. So in order for Israel to make themselves look like the poor little victims, they use their Muslim operatives and they create these fake ass terror groups, and they go out and they commit terrorist acts, and they use their control of the media here in the United States to broadcast to us that these radical Muslims are out there killing people and the Muslims need to be stopped, and they create this anti-Muslim sentiment. Israel bombed the Twin Towers on 9/11. It was Israel that planted those explosives in the Twin Towers and in Building 7. But what happened? Wasn't it a huge anti-Muslim campaign after that? That's what Israel does. And the reason why they want to demonize Muslims is because the Muslim countries, they know Israel's dirt. And they want to get rid of Israel because they know that Israel has been the cancer in the Middle East since 1947. So in order to make themselves look like the good guys, they create groups that claim to share the same religion as the actual good guys, and they go out and they do bad shit. It's like let's say the Black Lives Matter movement of 2014. It was a legitimate movement. It started as a peaceful, legitimate movement where black folks were tired of being mistreated by the racist police in these liberal cities, because there's a lot of racism in these liberal cities. Most of the police brutality against black people that's unjustified happens in liberal cities because white liberals are the most racist people in America. Black liberals are a close second. And what did the white liberals do to demonize the black people's movement? They started sending in the white Antifa operatives at night to create violence and demonize the movement. That's what they did. They are masters of infiltration. Now, something interesting happened on January 14th, right? And it said all of the 17 cities have outages, cities with current cell phone outages. So there was this big thing that happened across the country where all these major cities had cell phone outages, like people's cell phone coverage wasn't working. But I want you to take a look at this list of cities and tell me, what do you see these cities all having in common? Just take a look at the list. Go over the list. I got to take a quick bathroom break because I've been here damn near 3 hours. And hit the Cash App while you're at it and while you think. But take a look at this list of cities, and I want you guys to put in the chat what you think these cities all have in common. Go. Has enough time elapsed? Have you guys figured it out yet? Oh man, shout out to my man Chris Smith on the PayPal. We got a sponsor. We got our first sponsor in 1,000 years. My brother Chris Smith dropped a 50 on the PayPal. Shout out to you, my brother. Let me take a look at that comment and see what you said, if anything. Here's a half a note. Love you, brother. Appreciate you, Chris. We need more like you, Chris. Thank you for sponsoring the show tonight, my brother. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Freethinker says all Democrat. D. Allen says Democrat. Freethinker says and gay. Most hated jogger. I think he's saying what Freethinker said. They're gay. They're all very gentrified. Positive Queen. That's right. That's true. But the correct answer is they were all designated sanctuary cities at one point. Some of them have withdrawn their sanctuary city status, but at one point when the borders were open, they were all sanctuary cities, and they invited vast numbers of illegals into those cities. And in those cities is where the military age males formed their sleeper cells and their drug distribution networks, and they set up shop. And when the cell phone coverage went down, only certain cell phones were allowed to operate. And the reason for this was the military surveillance. Let me explain to you how it works. If the military is tracking a certain network of individuals, right? And they have a suspects list, and they want to pinpoint who these suspects are, where they're at, and who they're communicating with, and what they're communicating with each other, you do the weed out method, right? And this is you jam every cell phone in the city except for a select few. And the select few that you leave operational are the ones who are on your target list. Now, while everybody else in the city doesn't have cell service, these guys are piping on the phone, sending text messages, jacking off the porn, texting with each other, calling each other, having a ball. But now the military can ping their locations. They can download and clone their phones and get their messages. They can monitor their phone calls, and they can do all this at a much more efficient rate because they don't have to weed through all the other innocent non-target numbers to get to the target number. It was targeted surveillance. And every one of these cities is where ICE is doing and conducting the raids. And what's going to happen is military and National Guard, whether openly or covertly, is going to be deployed to these cities, and the funders and the sponsors and the rebel rousers of this anti-ICE insurgency are going to meet the counterinsurgents very soon. That's what the shutting down, that's what the cell phone outages is for. The military uses this tactic all the time. So if ever you're in your bed at night and you're scrolling on your phone and your internet starts acting weird and your cell service ain't working and you got no bars and shit, it's a very high probability that there's a covert military operation being conducted in your area. And the reason why they jam cell phones is so, one, they can pinpoint the location of the active target phones. That's one. And two, so any civilians that may bear witness to what's happening or may see the raid or witness the raid, they can't call out. They can't send out any videos. Hell, in some cases, they can't even take any videos because their phones were shut down and they can't even get them to turn on. And they cover their asses. Now, the cartels, they also have this cell jamming technology. Whenever they're conducting operations, they'll jam everybody's cell phones so nobody can call for help. But considering the fact that these are all sanctuary cities that have been targeted, I believe that it's military. And you remember that Q post with the red 1 through red 6? I believe red 2, it was a mass communications blackout in the continental United States. I think what happened on January 14th was just that, because all of these cities are within the continental United States, and it was a mass communications blackout. Whenever you see communications blackouts, think military. All right. So we are 3 hours in, and let me do some math real quick because I think we might be able to shoot for 100 tonight. let's see. That's 21 and 50. That's 71. So we're at $71 in donations. That's what's up. It's better than most nights. It ain't nowhere close to what I used to make, but hey, I can't complain. I can't complain because y'all still here. Y'all still supporting. So shout out, salute to y'all, man. Salute to y'all. But another 29 bucks would actually get us to 100. So how about it? Let's see if we can do it. Can 70 people on YouTube, 18 people on Rumble? Can 29 people put $1 on there? I don't know. 6 people put $5 each? I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I'm begging. Yeah, I'm slyway begging. So what? Yeah, I'm begging. Baby, I'm begging, baby. I'm begging, baby. Excuse me. You got $29? That's how the bums in New York beg. They be begging for double digits and shit. You know how bums in regular cities where the rent's cheap, you're like, you got $1, man. Excuse me, brother. You got $1. You help a brother out with $1. In New York, you be like, can you help a brother out with $1,000, man? I need $1,000, man. Like, or they be like, excuse me, brother, can you help me out? And you think he just want $5, $10, you know, like, sure, brother, what you need? Man, I need about 200, man. You got about 200 on you? Like, man, if you don't get the fuck out of my face, take this $10 and go on about your business. That's all I got. I need $200 too. So let me get with you and we gonna beg together. How about that, motherfucker? Just because I look nice and smell nice don't mean I got it like that. All that means is I had it like that, and that's how I was able to buy all this fly shit. But I ain't got it no more because I done bought all this fly shit, motherfucker. I'll make you a deal, bum man. How about I help you beg for the $200 and we split it 100 each? How about that? Just out here doing business with hobos and shit. Like, look, man, I'm gonna help you get that 200, but I need 50%. Word. Times is hard and rent ain't cheap. So here's an article from The Conversation, and I think we'll end it off with this. The Insurrection Act is one of at least 26 legal loopholes in the law banning the use of the U.S. military domestically. So in case you don't understand what they're actually saying, in this title, there's laws on the books that ban the use of U.S. military on U.S. soil. But the Insurrection Act is an override to that law. And I don't know if you guys recall when I read the Q Clearance Patriot Q post that was actually written by Trump himself. And there's a line in there that says certain laws have been pre-lifted to allow the use of military on U.S. soil, to allow for domestic operations. Well, those laws that were pre-lifted were laws that apply when we're in peace times. But now that we're in war times, and we've been in a state of declared war since 2001, September 11th to be exact, the laws of armed conflict now apply. So Trump can use the military on U.S. soil at his disposal. And now that the borders had been opened and the country had been infiltrated by thousands, maybe even millions of foreign nationals, many of whom are members of international criminal organizations, be it sleeper cells or drug operations, the use of military on U.S. soil is now available. It's now doable. It's now justifiable. So let's see what they say about the Insurrection Act. As protesters and federal law enforcement clash in Minneapolis in the wake of a second shooting of a civilian on January 14, 2026 by federal agents, President Donald Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to send troops to Minnesota in response to protests. This is not the first time Trump has invoked the act. Is Trump's warning just bluster? Does the president have the authority to send the military into American cities? Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. Is Trump the answer to this question involves a web of legal provisions that help define the president's constitutional roles as commander-in-chief and chief executive of the country, and that simultaneously try to balance presidential power with the power of state leaders. Yes, it tries to balance that power, but if you have state leaders that are rebelling against the federal government, there's now an imbalance of power, and somebody has to take lead. And it is incumbent upon the federal government, based on the supremacy clause of the Constitution, that they take lead, which means the Insurrection Act is in order, because when you have state authorities rebelling against federal authorities, that is an insurrection. And when you have insurrectionist politicians rebelling against the federal government and they start creating an insurgency on the ground, on the streets amongst the people, oh yes, the Insurrection Act and use of military force is 1000% justified. And boy, oh boy, I can't wait. Oh, I'll be front and center reporting on that shit. You best believe. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And I don't know if you guys recall, but this was actually the very first slide in my slideshow. I started the show with this. Protect states in times of violence. Tracing back to the Magna Carta, the British Charter of Liberty signed in 1215, there is a long-standing tradition against military involvement in civilian affairs. However, the U.S. Constitution guarantees that the national government will protect the states in times of violence and permits Congress to enact laws that enable the military to aid in carrying out the law. Almost immediately after the Constitution's enactment in 1787, Congress passed a law that allowed the president to use the military to respond to a series of citizen rebellions. And the citizen rebellions were American citizens who were siding and sympathetic to the British and wanted to remain under British rule, loyalists to the crown. Troops serving as what's called posse comitatus, which translates roughly to attendants with the capacity to act, could be called to suppress insurrections and help carry out federal laws. Following the Civil War, the national government used troops in this capacity to aid in reconstruction efforts, particularly in states that had been part of the Confederacy. The use of troops in this manner may even have influenced the outcome of the 1876 presidential election of Republican Rutherford B. Hayes. That happened when, in return for agreeing to withdraw federal troops from the South, Democrats informally agreed to the election of Hayes when the disputed election was thrown to a congressional commission. 2 years later, Hayes signed into law the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibited the use of military in civilian matters. The Posse Comitatus Act has not changed much since that time. The law prohibits the use of military in civilian matters, but over time, Congress has passed at least 26 exemptions to the act that allow the president to send troops into states. The exemptions range from providing military personnel to protect national parks to helping states in carrying out state quarantine and health laws. Insurrection Act. One of these exemptions is the Insurrection Act, which governs certain circumstances when the president can use military. Signed by Thomas Jefferson in 1807, Congress originally passed the law in order to help fight citizen rebellions against federal taxes. Over time, the law has evolved to allow the use of troops in other circumstances. For example, Presidents Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson used the Insurrection Act in the 1950s and 1960s to send the military to enforce court desegregation orders and to protect civil rights marchers. It was last invoked by President George H.W. Bush in 1992 when he ordered 4,500 troops to Los Angeles after rioting erupted in response to the acquittal of police officers charged with beating Rodney King. Yeah, that was a complete travesty of justice. Those cops should have definitely went to jail. But I think they did that on purpose to get the black people to riot and destroy their own community, and they did just that. And property values were lowered, so the outside investors were able to come in and buy up properties for pennies on the dollar. And now the Mexicans and the Chinese own Los Angeles. And the Negroes don't have shit. It was well played. The Insurrection Act says that the president may use the armed forces, to subdue an insurrection or rebellion and take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress violence. Well, it sounds like what's happening in Minnesota seems to fall right in line with the legal justifications for the Insurrection Act. Before doing so, he must issue a proclamation ordering insurgents to disperse and return to their homes. Well, that proclamation has been issued, so we are one step closer to the Insurrection Act. Rachel says, I don't know how any of you think it's okay to have most of your amendments violated and have Vance say absolute immunity, and you think that's okay. Well, Rachel, obviously you've fallen for the liberal propaganda because my constitutional rights aren't being violated and illegal aliens have no constitutional rights. So I don't know whose constitutional rights you're talking about being violated, but if it's those rioters in the streets, they clearly have carte blanche to gather and to protest and to have their voices heard. But when they start blocking federal officers and impeding federal officers from doing their duties, they are no longer acting within their constitutional rights. They are now committing criminal acts. They are now in violation of federal law. There's federal laws on the books that require that prohibits people from impeding or obstructing federal officers. So I don't know what you're talking about constitutional rights being violated. I don't know whose constitutional rights you're talking about being violated, but I don't see it. I don't see it. So if you'd be so kind, Rachel, as to enlighten me as to what constitutional rights of American citizens are being violated, I sure would like to know. Also, you have to consider this, Rachel. Our country is at war because for the last 4 years under Joe Biden, we were suffering under the influx of a foreign invasion. The country has been invaded by foreigners. And when we're under foreign occupation, like with these Democrats, and foreign invasion, there are no constitutional rights because we're in a state of war. Our country is at war, and there's necessary actions that need to be taken in order to win this war. Because if they win the war, Rachel, you'll really get to see what life is like without constitutional rights. Because right now, you still have your constitutional rights. You can get on the internet and say what you want, can't you? You still got your gun, right? The police still need a warrant to come in your house, don't they? If you get arrested, you have a right to remain silent, don't you? You get put through the courts and you have a right to an attorney and proper representation, don't you? You're not a fucking slave, are you? You're an American citizen because you were born here, aren't you? ICE has nothing to do with American citizens. ICE is about getting illegals, Rachel. And these American citizens that are fighting against ICE are being grossly misled into fighting for a cause that doesn't serve them. If these American citizens just go about their day and mind their business and let ICE do their job, they won't be getting their heads busted and they wouldn't be getting locked up and having bones in their faces broken and getting tear gassed and shit. But they're out there looking for trouble and they're getting trouble. And any American citizen that's trying to oppose ICE is acting on the behalf of illegal invaders, which means in a time of war under military law, they are now considered enemy combatants, foreign enemy combatants. So any American citizen that has a problem with ICE is falling for the Democrat propaganda. And That Democrat propaganda is designed to mislead you into supporting these foreign invaders that have no legal status in this country. What these paid protesters need to do is fall back and let ICE do their job. But because they're constantly being ordered to impede ICE, ICE is having to fuck their asses up so they can do their job. This is not happening in every city in every state. It's only happening in these insurrectionist states like the Democrat states and the Democrat cities, where the politicians of those cities and states, they hate Donald Trump so much and they hate America so much that they would rather take your tax money and give it to foreigners who shouldn't even be here before they give Black Americans reparations, which are, I don't know, 200 years overdue. These motherfuckers is 200 years late on the bill to the black folks, but they pay the illegals promptly. So why would you have a problem with ICE? Unless you're just simply grossly misled or grossly misinformed. ICE has no business with American citizens. And if you get stopped by ICE, all they do is ask you for your name and your date of birth. And they go back to their vehicles, they run your name and your date of birth in their computer. And if you come back as having a social security number and legal status, you're free to go. It's that simple. And yes, in a sense, that's pretty much stop and frisk, show me your papers. And it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment under normal circumstances, but we're not under normal circumstances, Rachel. We're not. We're under foreign invasion, and these democratic cities are under foreign occupation. That's the reality of things. We've been at war since the borders have been opened up, and that's the reality of it. And the best way you can protect yourself is to comply with the ICE officers if they make contact with you. Give them your name and your date of birth and let them identify you without resistance, and they won't bust your head or throw tear gas in your car. And they'll let you go about your way. But if you say, I don't have to show you shit, I have constitutional rights and this and that, they don't give a fuck about your constitutional rights because they are a military outfit and they do not operate under normal law enforcement circumstances. They operate under the laws of armed conflict. And in an armed conflict, there are no constitutional rights. Under military law, there are no constitutional rights. Remember, military law existed before the Constitution was written. So military law actually precedes the Constitution. So when we're under a state of military control, which is what we're under now because we're at war with a foreign invasion, yeah, you don't have no constitutional rights. But as far as your constitutional rights violations goes, is if ICE stops you, you have to identify yourself. Otherwise, they'll take you into custody until they can identify you. And that would be a direct result of your own actions and your own resistance. They're not patting your pockets looking for weapons or drugs. They're not trying to search your car. They're not trying to get a warrant to raid your house. They just want to know who the fuck you are and that you belong in America and that you are American. So, name and date of birth, they can search you up in the system, see that you're an American, let you go. Because you see, a lot of people are getting it confused because they don't understand that America is in a state of declared war. They don't understand it. So they're harping on this constitutional rights thing when in a state of declared war, the Constitution doesn't exist. We're under military law. That's what we're under right now. And those protesters, they are lucky. They're lucky that the Marines ain't came out there and started busting heads yet. Because if they try that shit with the Marines that they trying with ICE, everybody's going to jail. They're going to hit them with the sonic weapons and they're going to become physically disabled to where they can't run away. And then a squad of Marines are just going to waltz out there with a bunch of zip ties and handcuff everybody in zip ties, load them up on buses and ship them off to some military prison where they won't be seen again for the next 20 years, if seen again at all. So At this point in time, you should thank your lucky stars that you're an American citizen with a legal social security number, because that's all ICE needs. Queen Sheba TC says, what I notice is mostly LGBTQP talking about rights being violated and their community. And their community. And she says, if you not doing nothing wrong, it shouldn't matter. Just show your identification. Right. And here's the thing. When you're dealing with regular law enforcement under normal circumstances and you're not committing a crime and the cop can't give you reasonable, articulable suspicion to make you identify yourself, then you have a right to not identify yourself. But when you're dealing with ICE agents whose job it is to target foreign nationals, they have a different level of authority, and you have to identify yourself. But that's as far as it goes. They don't go any further. They don't pat your pockets, and they're not going to search your car. They just want to know who you are, so they know if they let you go, they're not letting go a foreign infiltrator who had infiltrated our country when the borders were open. That's all. That's as far as it goes. And I don't think that's as egregious of a constitutional violation, or that's such an egregious constitutional violation that warrants all these riots and people getting their heads busted and bones broken in their faces on behalf of these foreign nationals. I don't think it's worth it at all. Where are we? Return to the home. While state governors and legislatures also have the legal authority to ask the president to use troops in this manner, the states have preferred to rely on a combination of local law enforcement and the National Guard, which is under state command, not federal. Well, the National Guard is under state command as long as the president okays it. Because if, let's say, a governor deploys the National Guard in his state like Tim Walz wants to do, Donald Trump, as the commander-in-chief, can override the governor and take control of the National Guard, because the National Guard is Army, which is under Department of Defense, which is under the command of the commander-in-chief. So the governors don't have superior power over the state National Guard. Then their power over the state National Guard does not supersede that of the president. So the president can actually override the governor and take control of the National Guard. Let me put it in perspective for you. That's like, let's say you own 2 cars, right? And you let one of your friends borrow one of your cars for a month. That car is under your friend's control, but the registration on that vehicle and the insurance on that vehicle is still in your name. So even though your friend has possession of that car, and for the most part, control over that car, if the day comes where you decide that you want that car back, you have every right to go to that person, snatch the keys out their hand, and drive off in that car, and there ain't a goddamn thing they can do about it. So essentially, the governors having control over the state National Guard, that's like Donald Trump's car. And if Donald Trump decides he wants to get in the driver's seat of that car, there ain't nothing the governor can do about it. So if the governor deploys the National Guard, they're under the governor's control. But if the president decides to step in, they're now under federal control. Not only does this strategy enable governors to maintain authority over their states, but it also keeps things more straightforward legally and politically. In December 2025, Supreme Court refused to let President Trump deploy the National Guard in response to protests against ICE in Illinois. Yet, in a concurring opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh noted, as I read it, the court's opinion does not address the president's authority under the Insurrection Act. Which means if Trump invoked the Insurrection Act, then the courts can't stop him from deploying the military. But because Trump tried to deploy the military without the Insurrection Act, the courts had the ability to shut him down. Authority uncertain. Reliance on the Insurrection Act raises a host of legal, political, and practical questions about who is in charge when the military sends troops into a state. Well, the questions only get raised if you're dealing with deceptive-ass Democrats and corrupt politicians who want to usurp the power of the federal government. So they'll make straightforward issues that have a clear answer all convoluted and confusing in order to create this gray area where they can claim authority over what the president has authority over. Let's continue. For example, despite the fact that the act was invoked in response to the Rodney King riots, the military actually was not used as directed. The Joint Task Force commander in control of the mission appears to have been confused regarding how the Insurrection Act worked alongside the provisions of the Posse Comitatus Act. He issued an order prohibiting troops from directly supporting law enforcement, and that led to numerous denials of requests for assistance. Questions about the federal government's authority in the wake of the 2005 Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana raised similar concerns. The administration of President George W. Bush determined that it had authority under the Insurrection Act to send federal troops to the area, despite the fact that Louisiana's governor was opposed to military assistance. And George Bush sent in the military to New Orleans not to support the people and protect the people. You know why he sent them in there? To go take guns away from people. Because George Bush was one of those crooked deep state presidents that wanted to usurp the people's constitutional rights. And in the time of disaster, when the people needed those guns more than ever, he decided to take their guns away. For political reasons, President Bush did not end up deploying troops, but in 2006, Congress amended the law to address concerns that the military was unable to provide effective assistance to states in emergency situations. The amendment was later repealed when all 50 state governors raised objections to what they perceived as a grant of unilateral power to the president. Well, the president is the commander-in-chief, and he does have unilateral power over the military. It was so before the Constitution. These examples suggest a real difficulty balancing governmental responses to domestic crises. States need flexibility and authority to respond as they see fit to the needs of their citizens. But the federal government can and often does serve as a supplemental resource. As the events of the past week illustrate, striking an effective balance is rarely a straightforward thing. Well, of course, they don't have an effective balance because they're dealing with insurrectionist politicians. They're dealing with politicians that are leading an insurgency. They're insurrectionists leading a domestic insurgency. There we go. I was wondering why my screen wasn't changing. So, when you have state governments rebelling against the federal government, the use of the military is now necessary. This is why Q said military is the only way, because obviously the people of Minnesota cannot depend on their governor, and the people of Minneapolis cannot depend on their mayor to execute their duties in protecting the citizens of that city in that state. Because the mayor and the governor are both hell-bent on protecting these foreign invaders. But in order to remove these foreign invaders, since the governor and the mayor are derelict in their duties, the military now has to step in, and the president has to take control of the situation in order to shut down these riots, shut down these obstructors who are impeding ICE, and allow ICE to safely carry out their duties in removing these illegal aliens. I mean, for the life of me, I just cannot, and I still to this day cannot understand what would drive an American citizen to feel the need to put their life on the line in defense of a foreign national who couldn't care less about you. Renee Good got shot up by an ICE agent after she tried to run him over in defense of the illegals. I didn't hear one fucking Somali say rest in peace or my condolences. Not one. And not to mention the illegals that ICE has been picking up in Minnesota, hardcore criminals, sex offenders, rapists, murderers, thieves, scammers. Just a bunch of bad hombres, man. Why would you defend these people? Why would you want these people in your country? Why would you fight so hard, risk life and limb and your freedom for these people? And if these guys are members of sleeper cells, like I suspect they are, when the order is given to those sleeper cells to go turn up and start killing Americans, they will. Just like they did in Iran. They will do the same thing here. And it will be those same illegals that you dumb liberals are supporting and defending. They live in your city. So when it's time for them to turn up and kill Americans, guess where they're going to do it at? In your city. And guess who's going to be a target for execution at the hands of these foreign invaders? You and the rest of the people, rest of the Americans in your city. It does not benefit you to defend these people. What's to your benefit is for you to fall back, let ICE do their thing, let ICE do their job, and just stay the fuck out of the way. That's it. That is to your benefit. Stay out the way. Mind your business and stay out the way. If Renee Good would have minded her business and stayed out of the way, she would have been alive today. She would have been alive. And that's a fact. But she decided to inject herself into something that was not even to her benefit, and she died over it. Don't join in the radical left fanatics and try to defend these foreign invaders, because these foreign invaders are here to override you, overstep you, replace you, enslave you. And when the order is given, execute you. That's what they're here for. And they will do it. This is a military conflict that we're engaged in. This is not your average run-of-the-mill, government police raids going after criminal organizations within the country. No. This is a foreign invasion. Excuse me. Sorry. Try not to cough in the mic, but it happens. This is a foreign invasion by foreign enemy combatants. And any American that's putting themselves between federal agents and these foreign enemy combatants are going to be labeled as enemy combatants as well. And when the military gets deployed, they're all going. They're all going to go. And then they're going to cry foul, and then they're going to play victim and act like Trump is overstepping his boundaries and this and that. You know what? Trump don't give a fuck. And I don't give a fuck either. In fact, I can't wait to see it happen. And I'm going to give y'all a front row seat to that shit, because we are going to watch every stinking minute of it. I promise you. But anyway, that brings us to the end of tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I hope you guys learned something. And I really, really appreciate you guys supporting the show. That's been, you guys have been awesome. We got, let me see how many supporters we got. I think we're up to 5 now, if I'm not mistaken. What was it? 3 on the Cash App, 2 on the PayPal. So we did get our 5 supporters. So shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to all of y'all. And shout out to anybody else who may support the show on the replay. Shout out to my replay viewers. You guys are like the vast majority of my viewership, because the lives get shadow banned and only a few people ever find it. But while we're live, if you guys hit the like button and hit the share button, that will get more people to the show. And I promise you, I'll make it easy for you to share it. I'll stop calling the BBC network the Big Black Cock News Network. Okay. I'll stop calling these gay people fags. I'll stop calling Tim Walz a retard. And I'll stop saying fuck ass motherfucker so much. Okay. So that way, when you share it with your grandma and she wants to share it with her church friends, they can bear to listen to it, because it'll be rated PG-13 instead of rated R. Right. I'll try. I can't promise you nothing, because I get really passionate and sometimes I get carried away. But by golly, I will try my best to tone it down a little so it can be more palatable. My dad keeps telling me that. He's like, man, I watch, and I have to correct myself, because I always used to say, nobody that shares my blood watches my show and supports me. And my dad surprised me. But he always surprises me with criticism. He never calls me and says, yo, man, I watched your show. That shit was dope. Because he's a liberal. He supports the Democrats. And it's funny. It's comical, right? Because every time we have a debate, I win. But he keeps coming. He keeps coming back. And I know why, because he's a Ben, and that's how we are. We're not quitters, right? So he tells me the other day, he goes, yo, man, he's like, if you want to grow your viewership, you got to be a little less over the top. And I was like, but Dad, that's not how the game goes, man. The people love the drama. So the more over the top I am, is the more people that are going to want to watch. That's how you play the game. You got to make that shit fiery and you know what I'm saying? Like people want that excitement. You got to like roast the trolls and cuss up a storm and shit and be when you're live, because that's what people want to see. They don't want to come to the show. Good evening. In tonight's report, Donald Trump declares the Insurrection Act. Like nobody wants to see that boring shit. You turn on the TV to see that shit. You know what I'm saying? They come here for the fire. That's what they want. They want the heat, and I got it. And I also told them my numbers aren't low because of poor content. My numbers are low because of censorship, because there was a time when I was a lot more fiery and a lot more over the top, and I would sit here for 3.5 hours and raise my voice and scream and cuss and go off for an hour on the trolls and shit, and I don't do that anymore. But back then when I did do it, I was getting 500-600 people watching my show, and I was making that much money in donations per show. So much so that my channel was blowing up too fast and they had to find a way to censor me. So as much as, because my dad's old school, so he likes the calm, monotone reporting, because that's what he's used to listening to on talk radio and on TV. But I'm not one of them TV motherfuckers. I'm Citizen Man. I got my own style. I got my own way of doing shit. And I got my own people that enjoy what I do and fuck with me. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. But shout out to my dad. I love my dad. The greatest guy I know. And, regardless of the fact that we disagree politically, I still love him. And at least he's smart enough to know not to side with these fucking illegals. So shout out to Pops, man. If you're watching, salute, Dad. You did a great job raising your son. You might not be, you might be a little disappointed in the way I turn out and the way I talk, but it's no fault of your own. It's no fault of your own. The baseline of who I am, with the ability to do the research, the ability to think, the ability to analyze things, a lot of that is thanks to you. The fieriness and the passion and the spunk and the cussing and all that, that's from Mom. Let's blame her for that. Okay. But the logic, the logical thinking mind comes from you. And the reason why I say that, Dad, is because thinking back on when I was a kid, you know how little kids ask their parents all kinds of goofy ass questions like, what's this and what's that, just because they don't know? My dad had this thing where, and it used to annoy me as a kid, but now that I'm an adult, I see the value in it. And I do the same thing to my sons. Whenever I would ask my dad a question about something, he would respond with a question to make me think, right? Like I remember one time, and I don't know why I remember this, but I was like 3 and I was in a car seat. I remember being in the car seat and we were in the car and he put me in the back seat in the middle. My mom always liked to put me behind the driver's seat. I don't know why, so I couldn't see her or communicate with her, but my dad would put me in the middle. So I'll be watching him in the rear view mirror so he could see me and we'd be chatting. And he stopped at the red light one time and I said, yo, Dad. I said, Daddy, why are you stopping every time? Why are you always stopping at the red lights? Why do you have to do that? And he goes, look at the other cars. What are they doing? I was like, they're driving across the street. And he said, okay. And what color light do they have? I said, their light's green. And then I thought about it for a second and I said, oh, so the red light means stop and the green light means go. And he goes, watch what happens when this red light turns green. The red light turned green and he went. And in that moment, 3-year-old me figured out that how traffic lights work. And my dad didn't tell me. He could have sat there and said, well, I stop at the red light, son, because the red light means stop. And those cars are going because the green light means go. But he didn't tell me all that. He just made me think about it. And I thought about it, and little 3-year-old me was able to do the math, put it together, and figure it out. And that's the way most of our conversations went. I would ask him a question, and he'd never give me a straight answer. He would always answer me with a question that made me think about the question that I asked, and I would always be able to come up with the answer. And I think he did that because it was like really impressive to see his little boy, like, you know what I'm saying? Like just figuring out the world. I think he got a kick out of that shit. Because when I do it with my sons, I know the feeling now because I get a kick out of that shit. So, Dad, salute to you, man. And stop supporting these stink ass Democrats, man. They don't like black people. They're racist. Stop supporting the Democrats. Come over to Team Trump with your boy, man. Come on over. You raised me to be a smart young man. And if you doubt my intelligence, that's a poor reflection on your parenting. And you were a damn good parent. And you did not raise a dummy. I'm that tree with a wealth of knowledge that's fruit now. That knowledge that I have acquired is the fruit from the tree that you planted the seed and attended to his whole life and raised that tree from a sapling to a big, majestic canopy that bears the bestest, most sweetest fruit of knowledge. So come eat, Father. Come eat. You know what I'm saying? Don't doubt your own skills in parenting because you did a damn good job. I only ever been to jail one time, and that was for 4.5 hours. And I ain't been back since. And as a young black man in America that's dabbled in street culture and grew up around niggas that was in the streets, for me to be the man that I am today, you should be proud. And I know you're proud. So shout out to you. I just wanted to say that. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to say that because I always say all the time, and it gets me down when I say it, that nobody in my family watches my show. And my dad just recently revealed to me that he does. So shout out to you, Pops. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It means the world. It means the world. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I got to get up out of here. It's been 3 hours and 42 minutes. It's been a long ass show. And we got 5 supporters, but we're still $29 short of $100. So I didn't even make $100. So I worked for like $20 an hour tonight. Hell, less than that. But that's cool because there was a time when I did more for less. So I really appreciate you guys supporting the show. I love doing what I do. And I love the fact that there's so many people out there that are willing to listen and are smart enough to figure this shit out. And you guys are super intelligent. And you guys in the chat are a wealth of knowledge on your own, because there's times when I need information and there's pieces of the puzzle that I'm missing and you guys give it to me. So between myself and my research and you guys and your knowledge base, we'll always get it right. We'll never get it wrong. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to offer you my most humble thanks and appreciation for the love, for the support, and for the viewership, because without you guys, I'd be speaking to nobody. You guys are the ones that made Citizen Man TV. And without you, I'd be just another voice speaking into the abyss of the internet. So shout out to y'all for that support. And I will see you on the next one. Citizen Man out.